people are just like me and you.
I know.
How many times do I have to tell you that?
Well, you tell me that all day. How I'm just like all the gay people.
Gay people are the same as everybody.
No, you mean you always tell me specifically how I think you're just calling me gay. It's one of the.
It's not an insult. He thinks it's an insult.
No, I didn't mean it.
Why would being gay be an insult?
Yeah.
I love gay people.
Yeah, I know.
How's life on the road?
I got a kid.
You have a kid?
Yeah, man, when you have a little baby, like, I guess I never loved anybody before, you know? And when I had the baby, it was like, oh my God, like you have all this love and you feel like so incredible, you know? And like single guys can't understand it, like so I'd be telling them, I go, this is like the most unbelievable feeling you'll ever have in your life, you know? And they'll go, like, is it like crystal meth? And I'm like, this is my promise to the people of the Video Podcast Network world. I will not eat a single morsel of food until Margaret Thatcher is dead and buried.
She died 3 weeks ago. We'll be right back with Larry King.
Uh-oh, James, your mic is muted.
Oh, no. It was unmuted.
I was like, oh,
earlier.
yeah.
There. Welcome, everyone, to Redoubt. Joining me today, we have Christian, John with Focus Trip, and a guest from John's Focus Trip Discord. Am I right, boy? He has some insight into one of the stories that we're going to cover today. So thank you all for being here today. We have a number of topics. Got a couple news items, and including some... some things that'll touch on Protestants and Catholics, and no one gets a free pass today. And then we also do want to touch on the Orthodox versus Muslim debate that happened with Mr. Wilson. What's his first name?
Andrew Wilson.
Andrew Wilson. There we go. Andrew
Not
Wilson.
Doug Wilson.
And,
Doug Wilson's a different one.
No, the other Wilson. And I do not know how to pronounce the Muslim gentleman's name, but should be a good debate as well. We have a couple other topics that we might get to if we have time. So before we get into all of that, Christian, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Just staying busy, shooting a ton. Went down, did an RO course for USPSA, so just getting involved more. Yeah, other than that, good, man.
Fantastic. What are you drinking?
I have beers in the fridge. I'll go get one later, but the good old Labatt Blues.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
John, how you doing today?
Doing good. So are you now a fully certified RO, Christian?
Yep, got the badge on my thing and everything. Yep.
That's just a ticket for people to abuse you and be like, hey, you want to RO this match? And you're like, oh, no, not really, but I guess.
I'm already going to slave away at Area 1. I already signed up, so
yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight I'm drinking Any Means Orange Bang. Never had it before. It's all right. Chilling.
Excellent. Am I right, boy? Are you drinking anything?
No, I got some water around here somewhere, but
got some water.
No.
How you doing tonight?
Good. It's just another great day in cold and miserable Great White North.
Excellent. Alrighty. I am drinking Booker's. This particular, it's a barrel proof. This particular batch is it's called the Storyteller batch. It's 2023, their fourth batch of the year. And it's one that I particularly enjoyed. I got a second bottle of it because I liked it so much. And it's 127.8 proof, so that's 63.9% straight alcohol. And I think I'm going to need it to get to this stream. So poured myself a nice glass. We'll see if I descend into total incoherence. Excellent.
Yeah, I hope we're not talking about presuppositions again for another.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not.
Yeah. I figured this stream would be one where I didn't have to have all of my mental faculties in order, so I could. In fact, it'd probably be easier to get through if I didn't. All right. What's up first, John?
Well, Amrite boy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We have a topic about a church that got embroiled in some light shenanigans, or some pretty heavy shenanigans, honestly. And you had some experience with it. You were the one who shared this with me, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and why this kind of speaks to something close to you?
I probably like all you guys grew up in the church. I grew up a pastor's kid in a small town Midwest church, and through probably the course of about 13 years, I watched that church essentially implode from the leadership level on down. And that type of implosion leads to the situation that we're seeing now with this particular video. I will commend this church based on what they have said. You know, I'm not in Kalamazoo, so I can't go out there and personally verify if they are doing what they said, but they have said that since that initial event that they took extra steps to try to help the local homeless community. And if that is true, that is good for them, but that does not excuse their behavior when this situation happened.
Right. So why don't we go ahead and let this play, because this goes down a bit of a rabbit hole, you could say. And it started out with a confrontation between a homeless woman who had been she was disabled. She was sleeping in her car in the church parking lot, and the church responded in, we'll talk about it, maybe not so appropriate of a way. Oh, and the audio's off.
The most disgusting. What do you mean internet detectives have already uncovered the most disgusting stuff about that church in Michigan? We're talking about the Second Reformed Church in Kalamazoo, where a homeless woman goes in to speak to this woman, Janice. This elderly woman is also in the office of this church. Just to talk to them because she parked in this parking lot and had a sticker saying that she would be towed. And she's homeless, also disabled. So she's like, okay, they're open. I'm just going to go talk to them and explain to them why I was trying to sleep here last night. She's very polite. She explains, I'm disabled. I get $900 a month. I have been homeless for 18 months and I'm just trying to find a safe place to sleep overnight in my vehicle. Neither of these women could care less. What makes it worse is that this woman continues to say, I'm not only going to get your vehicle towed, I'm going to call the cops. This woman starts recording her, so they are now literally recording each other to find out that's one of the pastors for this church. Same pastor that
Just a little red flag to start you off there. The
Yeah.
woman recording the woman happens to be a pastor.
I'm watching this, John, when you shared it in the Discord, and I was thinking, okay, it is always two sides to every story. You never know exactly which side you're supposed, especially when it's one of these situations. Homeless person, I'm kind of predisposed to take the side of maybe the person who doesn't want the homeless person on the property, and then I see, oh, women pastor, yeah, they're probably in the wrong. This is almost certainly.
Well, right, because I think there is a way to absolutely justify getting rid of a homeless person from your property. Like, of course, if it's a safety concern, or if you have children around, or you're the pastor, you're supposed to be protecting your flock, right?
Right.
But in this scenario, I mean, they're yelling at a disabled woman essentially, not some crackhead 6'2" man sleeping in their parking lot while people are around. It's like,
I haven't watched this yet, but it seemed like it already spiraled into like a Karen battle or something.
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
battle of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Karens,
Yes. Shadow Force says woman moment.
Well,
The whole thing is just a woman moment.
Yeah, woman pastor, based anti-homeless activities, but also woman pastor. It's like, yeah, who's in the right here? We don't really
Right.
know.
literally preaches about compassion, goodwill, and holds prayers with her.
Oh, also, I don't know this lady, of course, that's making this, but it seems to me she has a anti-Christian bent, or at least she doesn't seem to be too charitable to one side. Obviously, which is very
No, most of the videos do not. There's no fair take from any of the commentators. It is a sparsing through to find the facts versus the opinions.
Didn't Joel Osteen get called out during one of the floods or a hurricane? Not too long
Yes,
ago,
the
where
last
he-
big floods, he
in
would not
Texas.
let people in their church
Right.
because
As I
he
rec-
claimed the
Go
carpets
ahead.
were cleaned and they would mess it all up, even though these people had no homes.
Yeah, it's like, sorry you lost your homes or whatever, but my carpets just got cleaned. And there was a mattress factory just down the road or something like that, and they held up everybody on their brand new showroom mattresses.
Oh wow, just
instead.
ruined their inventory. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
well, yeah, for a good cause. And Joel Osteen's like, sorry guys, like Can't have no dirty homeless people.
Well, I think what
Flood.
Joel was worried about is that they would find the stacks of cash in the
Yeah.
walls.
They're
Wasn't that
tripping
another
over the
scandal?
cash and sex tapes. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was another tricky one where it's like, okay, you know, I would probably not be super in favor of my church taking in a bunch of people. It does depend on the circumstances, and it's a tough call. Joel was probably slightly unfairly maligned. I don't remember all the details back then, but I feel like it was a somewhat more justified
It is
argument
something
than
to
what
consider.
the whole public attacked him for. But then it's like, wait a second here. This is Joel Osteen. I can't be defending Joel Osteen.
Yeah. Wait a second. It's not about being reasonable. It's about winning points online. But there is a question there about security, right? Because even in this, like a national disaster happens, right? And there's like 100 people that want to stay in your church. You're kind of responsible for those people when they're in your church, right? So imagine one of those people that's in that church that you let in is taking advantage of like some kids, or they're stealing things or something like that. So it is a big responsibility. Now you still have to do it, and you have to figure out a way to make it work. But yeah, it's not as simple as, oh, just do whatever you want. Come in here, of course.
Yeah,
of
well,
course.
and it's tricky because like a church does have extra responsibilities that an individual household probably doesn't. But it also helps to just imagine, like, if your house is 100 times smaller than the grounds of the church, would you be willing to take in one of those homeless people? You know, 100 times less, or you know, divide however many people want to get in the church, divide that by the square footage you have available. Would you be willing to take in those people? You know, after your family's probably going through hard times too. It's like, I don't know that we should, as a public, be shaming people into making those calls as a matter of necessity. Like, oh, you made the absolutely wrong call by not being more charitable than most people would otherwise be. I just think that that's perhaps a little bit too graceless. But
Yeah,
again, it
but I
does
think
depend on
that
the
we
context, and
also-
churches do have an extra responsibility.
Yeah,
that
we
comes
also
down
hold up to
to-
a higher standard too, right?
Yeah.
When it comes down to, the church is not a single person. It is the community that ostensibly is full of people who care about those around them. And, you know, there's the whole discussion on the public expects us to just do whatever and, oh, you're a Christian. But in times of need, that is some of the best opportunities to do real, meaningful outreach to the public and bring those to Christ. And turning people away, so in the Joel Osteen case, turning people away from the church when we know they have the security team, we know they have the volunteers and the paid staff to help watch the people and take care of them. But a mattress store that has no say in the matter and just threw out probably $100,000 worth of inventory to just let people sleep while the waters went down till they could go back home.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
It's a really bad look.
Yeah,
It's a horrible witness, right? When the church is saying no, and then the private company is like, of course, right?
Congregation about how she wants the church to be a sanctuary for those in need. None of that is as shocking as what they found about this woman. Buckle up, people, because Janice is married to this man named Robert. Guess what Janice's husband is? A registered offender. But wait, it gets worse. Not only is her husband a registered offender for children, she knew he was a registered offender because his first charges started back in 2001. Exactly what charges did he get to become a registered offender? These are the charges he got in Michigan. This is public record. So what exactly does this mean, second degree? It means that the child that had to be under the age of 16 for this to qualify as a second degree was either someone he is biologically related to, a child that was living under his roof when this happened, or he was in a position of authority. It means he was either a teacher, a substitute teacher working at the school, or was in a leadership role at a church where the victim attended. I could not make this up if I tried.
Now, the one thing that I do want to say about that looks horrible, right? The receptionist at your church is married to a sex offender.
Yeah, you want to feel sorry for people. You want to try to do the Christian thing, but that does not mean employing and probably having him in the building around children.
Well, that's
They
the part I
don't
was kind of
necessarily
gonna-
equate. They don't.
That's the
They
part I was
don't.
going to kind of
Yeah.
say that we don't know if that's the case though, because they could be
'Cause-
separated and only like technically legally married, or
That is one of the things that comes up with these videos.
there
Is
could be more charitable explanations here, I suppose, or maybe it happened 20 years ago and he's reformed, right? I mean, so that's a lot to forgive, obviously. Inappropriate relations with somebody under 16 that you have power over. I mean, I personally would not be for that, but some people are more charitable, and
Hot take.
those people, I'm just, it's like a possibility, right? I mean,
Why do these
I-
red dots just always have like a look to them? Like you just kind of see the way they look, and you're like, yeah, he's probably a pedophile.
it's in the eyes. There was a
It's
conversation
in
in
the
Discord
eyes.
about that a couple weeks ago. It's in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The eyes are the window to the soul, right?
Yeah, it is true. Like even in the picture, he's smiling. I don't think it's not a mugshot, but I feel like a mugshot would be a lot
Should be.
less scary than.
Well,
yeah, the-
I'm actually, what is the crime? Was he did it in 2001, 2002? Was he in jail for 10 years and then came out and then married? Like,
Well, it's
what were you in
Michigan,
prison
so-
for? It's like, oh, we should be kind. What were you in prison for on your first date? It's like, oh, inappropriate relationships with a minor. It's like,
Yeah.
nothing much.
To be fair, everyone does deserve some measure of grace. Doesn't mean that
Sure.
you don't also do what you need to protect yourself and your family, because people also who have sinned in the past, it's a good indicator for when they'll sin in the future. But I do think that we do need to be gracious even to the worst among us when they are truly reformed. Identifying who those people are and how reformed they are, that's the tricky part.
Right. And I mean, it's like there are plenty of murderers who have been reformed. Most of the time they stay in jail, right? We just let them out.
Right.
There's still a debt to pay.
We're not done.
I don't know. These days, you'd be surprised.
Well,
I'd make this
yeah.
up if I tried. We're not done yet, because allegedly Janice and her husband Robert also own a local boutique where teens under the age of 16 like to shop. Mind, we're talking about multiple charges linked to this man. All of them have relationship, which either means this is a kid that was living in the house with him, this was someone who is biologically related to him, or he's related to by marriage, or he was in an authoritative position over this child and she's married to him and is still married to him. Also worth noting that the church shut down all information about their pastors and staff a year ago. All of this information has been uncovered in the last 48 hours. If you haven't seen this original video, don't worry, I got you. After I post this video, I will follow it with a
So the original video was from a year ago, the actual confrontation itself.
Yeah.
Trans
I just
woman
want to park my car and sleep.
Well, it's TikTok, so I
yeah.
don't know what the
Okay.
names mean. That's the thing.
The,
It's like, these are not coming from reputable sources.
the original video is listed under the lady who took it, hers. But it's like that video is like 2 minutes longer because she gives a whole preamble about everything beforehand. And it's the same content, just 3 different
Right.
accounts have the whole thing.
I'm not bothering anybody by being here. I don't cause any trouble. All I do is park my car here and sleep. That's it. I don't know where.
And this woman isn't even like trying to argue or respond or like, offer solutions. She's just recording. And this is the pastor, by the way. You walk into a church and this is the pastor, you walk out, right?
I was talking about this with my dad, and it's just there are valid security reasons for not wanting her to sleep on the property, but that does not mean not trying to offer assistance, not offering to put her in contact with local resources and connections the church may have with someone either willing to let her sleep in their house for the night or sleep in a private drive or a homeless shelter or other resources she might not have found yet. Responding with a passive aggressive note on a car saying leave or get towed.
Right, or we're gonna call the cops on you, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, being in a position of authority like that, you definitely have a higher standard to abide by.
there was a right way to do it, and it
Mhm.
seems like they went out of their way to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I mean, they this happened. This original confrontation was a year ago. They shut down all of their social media, their Facebook pages, everything. If you go to their website right now, it is just it's just this page. That's it.
They even whitewashed their website.
Yeah, basically. Now they have a statement. A video involving a past interaction at our church has been circulating online and has raised concerns within our community. At Second Reformed Church, part of our mission is to be rooted in Christ's teachings on compassion, support, and service to all, including those experiencing homelessness. We take this matter seriously and continue to review our policies to ensure they align with our values to creating a safe, welcoming environment to everyone. This sounds like it was written by ChatGPT. So it's so.
Are you allowed to call
corporatized.
yourself Reformed if you have a woman pastor?
No.
That doesn't. You can't do that.
Name one. Name one
Get my-
reformer. Name one.
From what I,
Reformer's
looked
name
at-
out your fucking mouth.
From what I looked at, that specific type of church is something that came out of like the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's not like a traditional Reformed church.
No, I know.
No.
It's just I like how it's Second Reformed Church. Christ is first, we are second. Like the tagline doesn't even make any sense.
It's like how there's 3 types of Mormons, but if you ask them, there's only one.
Right.
Yeah, it says, and I'm sure the TikTok audience has not been kind to them. We've also received threats to our church staff and families, as well as threats to our partner organizations using the building. We ask for grace as we navigate this sensitive matter. Little rough.
And someone from a news agency was able to get in contact with one of the church's local missionaries. That's who's being interviewed in the article. And they said since the event, they have taken steps to try to handle it better, but they have not gone into detail on what those steps are. They haven't talked about what there should have been a whole series of events that happened within the church that should be able to be talked about as in we had meetings and we decided that wasn't okay behavior by our leadership and we apologize for it. We will do better in the future.
See,
Yeah, they
you
could've
say
gotten out of
that,
this.
you say that, good sir, but accountability goes against their nature. And when the
Oh,
church leader-
oh, trust that is accountability is from the congregation to leadership to congregation. Self-reflecting on what I witnessed over my childhood, that is the single biggest issue on why the church my family was involved in essentially died. They're not. They still exist, but within a decade, they will most likely not be here.
What denomination was it?
So Assemblies of God is the type of church. It's kind of confusing because there's like 3 different types of Assemblies of God, but it's
Pentecostal, right?
evangelical, Pentecostal.
Yeah, okay. Are they congregational in nature?
Yes. So
So they don't have any kind of a hierarchical structure.
So they
Solid.
do have a hierarchical structural. It is congregation, district, state, national.
Okay.
In this particular case, for a series of events that happened through financial mismanagement of church funds and charity funds, things that were ostensibly bought for the church, but were they really bought for the church? Did the church need them? And misuse of funds meant for a charity that the church had helped start up in the area. The board, because the congregation has a board that they elect, and the board is supposed to look after the congregations, and they interact with the pastor and help run the church. Accountability had not been going on for such a long time. By the time they finally did something, it was really too late to really fix anything. The pastor was given the option between resigning or having the district come in. When the districts come in, they don't generally side with the congregation of the board. They almost always side with the pastor. And in this case, the pastor and his family, well, they're not bad people by any means. They were the ones running the things. They were not spending the church money how it's meant to be spent. Not to the point of where anything like criminal would be anything, but like that's not what the money was meant for. It wasn't meant to buy XYZ thing for the church kitchen because you thought it would be convenient for you.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, ministry financing is a whole issue that I'm very passionate about. I think that so many ministries do it completely wrong, and it's someday I'd like to put a lot more time and effort and even capital into trying to solve that issue, because I think that there is just so much growth that can happen and so much more accountability that can take place, and even just applying some very simple accounting measures, just standard accounting practices to the way ministries are done, which just really aren't in place at all right now. Would be extremely helpful. It would be helpful for both the people who are giving money, but also for the missionaries and the ministers who are using the money. It would give them a sense of accountability, but also a sense of freedom to use certain money more freely than they otherwise would, rather than just feeling the sort of weight of all of it being treated exactly the same, and basically being judged for how they spend their money, how they spend every penny. And that's, I think, where a lot of missionaries especially, but you'll also see it with ministers, they're in this position where basically there isn't this separation of the ministry fund from the personal funds, and so all of the money end up being basically accountable and responsible, and sort of the outside is looking at how they're spending every penny, and that's a hard weight to live under. And so if you just separate the funds appropriately, like many churches do with their pastors' funds, but a lot of missionary work, it's not separated at all, and so it all is just one fund. And then it just makes it so that a missionary feels like he can't buy a bigger house, even if he's spent very well, and he's just saved up a lot of money and has been extremely responsible with his funds, and he wants to use some of that money that he's saved to buy a nice size house or a car or splurge or whatever, and he feels like he really can't because that would be a bad witness. And on the other side, there's just a lack of accountability in general, where because you have these merged funds, some people feel a little bit too free to spend it however they want to. And it's ministry financing is definitely a can of worms. It's tough.
That is part of the thing that really, I think part of the thing that really stung with my dad is, before he was associate pastor and youth pastor at the church, he had been elected to the board as the treasurer, and he had gone through a lot of time and effort that he didn't really need to do to try to set a system like that up in place, and they just didn't continue it. And before he finally felt God telling him that it was okay for him to leave that congregation, that there's nothing he could do that was going to set it right back on track, he spent weeks having to go back through the books and documenting everything correctly on how it was spent, and trying to figure out where are these receipts? What was this spent on? What is this item? What is this expense? Because no one else was going to do it, and without any of that, if they were to get audited, they would lose their nonprofit status.
That's some sketchy water right there. If you're about to have the federal government come down on you because you can't justify what you're spending things on.
Yeah, and just to make matters a little bit more difficult, his normal job, he does work for the federal government, so he can't be associated with something like that. So not only was he had to, because that could be really bad, and for the sake of what was left of the church, no one wants to see them fail, but you can only patch a sinking ship so much.
Yeah. So I kind of want to hear the whole story, am I right, boy? Can we let's just maybe finish this clip, and then let's jump into sort of the articles and some of the details from your kind of parallel experience.
Oh, which clip did you want to finish?
So we didn't watch the whole
the original,
the actual.
It's just essentially the confrontation. It's nothing serious.
I just want to park my car and sleep. I'm not bothering anybody by being here. I don't cause any trouble. All I do is park my car here and sleep. That's it. I don't know where else to go. So what do you think you're going to accomplish by this, man? Because it's not going to make you look good. I suggest both of you open the Bible and see Look what it says about homeless people and poor people and what you're supposed to do. Because it's not this. It's not this, and you know it. But I expect nothing from the church. I hope you're not turning that off. Record it all. Put it on Facebook. It's not going to make you look the way you think it is. It's not. You don't have to call the police. But you would. You would, because that's what kind of people you are in this church. I'm going to put this on the internet, and a lot of people are going to see it, and you're going to be really embarrassed.
So I mean, it's the music is supposed to obviously put you like on her side, and it's really kind of somber, and this is very sad. But I think just everybody's bad in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, they're all bad.
The original clip from her channel comes off a lot more confrontational than the small clips show. But again, that's kind of what you're supposed to be trained to deal with if you're in a leadership position with a church. Because this lady isn't coming in with weapons. She's not coming in trying to fight anyone. She is being loud. She's being emotional. I think most people in her situation would be. But the response from the church is the main issue, and no one is in the right. But we have to hold ourselves and the organizations that we're part of to a higher standard than a singular person.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's a little tough from just that video. I'm sure there's more context as well. But like, I have so many questions. You know, how long has she been there? You know, what is her physical appearance? Does she look, you know, completely out of order and like just a, I don't know. Does she look like a crackhead? Does she look like someone who probably shouldn't be on your property?
In the video off of her channel, she looks decently put together for someone in her situation. You know, there's so much more that goes into physical appearance than just looks. You know, there's attitude, smells, and all sorts of things. But she doesn't look like someone you would be scared of if they walked into the building.
Right.
She
I think
looks
my
like
biggest question
another
would be,
woman.
my biggest question would be, what had their prior interactions with this woman been? Because you really can't tell from that clip. Maybe there's more context that's been shared, but it's like, I can imagine so many scenarios that would lead up to that. Which again, I hate taking the women pastor's side, but I can imagine so many scenarios
It's
where
possible,
just sub out the genders, where you could absolutely be. I mean, the church had decided to put a note in her car saying it should be towed. So that tells me that she'd probably been there many nights. Maybe not. Maybe it was just one night and they were like, hey, you're going to get towed. And that does seem a little excessive. Yeah, if they hadn't reached out to her at all, hadn't made any kind of effort to share some resources, then yeah, that would be, I think, uncharitable and overkill. But had there been something of an ongoing, you know, relationship with this person, they knew who she was, they had interacted with her in the past and didn't want to continue to deal with her, and then she walks in with her phone just trying to go viral, then
the church has done a terrible job at providing any context. The video that the lady who filmed, we only have her side of the story. They just have refused to provide any context that would help anyone. But according to the woman, she had been there recently one night. She says she tries to go to several different places, so she's not at one place very long. I guess security at the local hospital and I guess the local Walmart there are very vigilant on overnight parking. And she claims to have guns pointed at her before and been told to leave or be trespassed off properties. And from the context in the video, she was asleep. Someone saw her in her car. They put the note on the window. She found it when she woke up. She left or woke up and the church was open, and then she went in to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that both parties should have done and could have done differently, but it comes down to we are called to help those in need, or at least try to help, instead of just shooing those aside because they are inconvenient or make the premises look less than you want it to look somehow.
Yeah, and in this day and age of social media, your digital witness matters, and
I just love misogyny. It's so funny.
yes, chat's killing it. Yeah, and so you have to be aware of the public witness that you're setting, and Christ did say, "The poor you'll always have with you," but he also, New Testament's very clear that, and Christ is very clear himself that when you minister to the poor, you're also ministering to him, in their presence, and so that's we absolutely have a duty to the poor, and we should hold ourselves to a higher standard as Christians. And yeah, sometimes you get called out for it, and sometimes it might not be entirely fair, but this is the world we live in, with social media and that sort of thing. And yeah, it seems like everyone messed up here, most likely, and even if they didn't, the very fact of our public witness, I think, should cause us all to think that, hey, if we're ever in a similar situation, at least, do the bare minimum. Don't just threaten to call the cops immediately, but try to provide resources and try to be helpful and be kind, be polite, and because you just don't know where footage is going to be shared, and you don't want to cause scandal.
I mean, just speaking from personal experience, I mean, the closest I've felt to God is actually reaching out and helping people that are less fortunate, buying a food for that homeless guy on the side of the building, But that's just my personal experience.
Yeah. Personally, the rule is to always help whenever you can. Like whenever somebody asks, just to do as much as you can do reasonably without harming yourself or your family. One thing that I do want to share about is it wrong of me to not give the homeless guy that asked me for money after work money?
No.
So I had an experience with a woman in a parking lot. She came up to me and she was like, "Hey, I need gas. I'm trying to get to Cincinnati or whatnot. Can you help me out?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure, okay." So I just gave her some money from gas, whatever. 2 weeks later, she uses the exact same line on my wife, and I'm just like watching it play out, and I'm like, my wife was nice. My wife did give her some cash. I could have called her out and been like, "I think you're just a lying, person who's taking advantage of people's goodwill," but I just let her go on. Then I told my wife afterwards. I was like, "She used that line on me like 2 weeks ago, babe."
Yeah, I never give them money. I usually will get them, some drinks out of the store, some food, something like that. I refuse to give them money. That's just me.
Yeah, and even gift cards aren't that much better, because one thing they'll do is they'll trade out the gift cards with someone else for even less value. They'll be like, "Hey, I got a $10 Panera gift card. Can you give me $5 cash? I'll give you this Panera gift card." And some people will take them up on it. I've taken homeless people up on that before. It's like, "Oh, I'll trade you."
That's funny. Yeah, sure, bro.
Is that a sin?
Tradesies.
No, this will be explicitly used for drugs. Great deal.
That is one of the things that makes it so much harder in today's world. Is those who don't want to work in a different way and choose that way to try to make money. It makes it so much harder to really trust that someone is in need. I mean, you see people in a Walmart parking lot, and they've been there for 3 weeks with the same sign, or you see them around the city and they have like a super nice pair of shoes and a super nice backpack next to them, but they're holding the sign saying they have no money at all.
Well, what was it in Seattle? They did a study, and the average homeless person was taking in like 50, 60, 70K a year in donations or something like that.
Tax-free too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Well, it's a crazy grind set right there.
Matt Walsh has done some really, it isn't really investigative work, but just good opinion work on how the homeless crisis is not a crisis of homes. Like the problem with homelessness, the solution to homelessness is not more homes. It's not.
No.
It is definitely a question of mental illness and plenty of other things, and cultural and societal issues, but it's not that that there aren't enough homes for these people. You put these people in homes, you give them homes for free, and they'll trash them in a week. It is not. I mean, they've tried this with hotel rooms, and it is not a matter of not having a place to sleep.
There's people who don't care, and there's people who really care, and they're trying their best, and oftentimes those are the ones who get screwed over the most because they are trying to work, so they're making just enough that they don't qualify for anything, but nowhere near enough what it takes to just get to that extra step and climb out.
And a lot of them are so attuned to that lifestyle that they don't even want to change.
Yep.
No, it's what they do.
Yeah.
This is their life, you know. To
Yep.
them, it's not homeless. To them, it's Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Those who care are the ones who really get screwed over because the system is not set up to help them get out.
Help them get out, exactly.
on the bright side, if societal collapse happens, nothing would really change for them. I guess they'd be.
Bro, you're like, how do you guys do it? And you're like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
The meme. Nothing ever changes.
Actually,
Who's on
my
the-
status went up because
Yeah.
everybody
Who's
else
on
went
top
down,
now?
so-
Yeah. Yeah.
You and I are not so different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, did you want to take a look at? You sent this article over on autopsy of a deceased church. It's 2 pages long. There's very little. Or did you want to talk about Pastor Steven Anderson or one of the other articles that you had sent over? Am I right, boy?
I would say the Pastor Steven Anderson thing, that is more in line with this topic on accountability and public witness. That is a comment made by a pastor whose church was called, I don't know if you saw it, but the lady who did the quotation mark social experiment and called like 40 or 50 churches asking for a can of baby formula with a baby crying in the background. It's not a real baby.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
Just
a
to
good
see
faith
who would bite.
experiment.
Right.
But the response by most of the churches is what a church really should respond. Most of the churches, and they have been unfairly called out for this, but most of the churches redirected her saying, we do our outreach through XYZ food bank or organization where, them and probably 30 other churches in the area send their food donations. They send money to help this organization so that organization can help people from one central place. Because it's far more effective to do that from one central organization than having like 3 cans of food at every church.
Well, right. It's like, hey, if somebody calls you up right now and is like, hey, can I get you a can of baby formula, right? It's like, okay, well, I have to go to the store. I have to figure out which one it is that you need. And then I have to actually physically give it to you somewhere versus like we already like fund a shelter or a nonprofit or something that already does this. And it's like, just call this number and they will literally take care of you. Right?
Yes, and part of the heavy quotation marks on the social experiment, because it was by no means objective at all. It was meant to make people look bad. The lady then lied and said, "Well, these places said they can't help me," and we all know the response she was looking for, and it is the correct, response thing, even if the lady's lying. Like, okay, well, we can meet you at this place and have that can of formula for you. If you can come in here, we can make that work for you. That is the Christian response. But then churches do have to be careful because people do try to steal money from churches. But again, that is the response from some of the pastors after the situation on their sermons on Sunday and online afterwards. Take it from what could have been made a statement saying, yes, this happened. We do our outreach through this so it can be 10 times more effective than just the people coming here.
Rather than rectifying the situation and clarifying, they kick a hornet's nest. So Steven Anderson, after this, I'll just read this out, says, I would be pissed if I donated to a church and found out that they were giving the Lord's money to single mother whores. Probably could have been worded a little bit less confrontational. I would want it to go to the Lord's work or toward helping godly Christians who are in need. Churches should not be funding fornicators and their bastards.
And his sermon, I could not find a good clip of his sermon that was not just, inserted with a whole bunch of other stuff that wasn't obviously pushing an anti-Christian agenda. But I tried to find a clip of just the sermon, and I could not. His sermon was not much better. It was far more confrontational. And if you're living your life by Old Testament standards, you're not wrong, but we're not Jewish. We're not called to live that way. you don't have to accept or encourage that type of behavior by women and men who would leave women like that. But we are called to help if we can.
Yeah.
And
It's-
that
it's-
is the wrong response for a pastor of all people.
Well,
yeah, I don't have much time for this kind of, even just this kind of language and this kind of tone. It's one thing coming from a commentator, cultural commentator, whatnot, but coming from a pastor, it just hits different, and there's a certain division of labor. Like it's true
Right.
that some people are. There is a time to use the word whore in a technical nature, or even potentially in a pejorative nature if you're trying to make a point. But as a pastor, those times are extremely rare, and certainly not in this kind of way where you're just actively shunning your pastoral care for your community. Your care is not just for the people in your flock. I mean, you do have some duty to care for your anyone who could potentially be in your flock. Your community is part of your flock as well, or at least part of your duty of care.
Well,
And,
and I mean, part of your outreach has to be to people like this. Yeah, single mothers who have made mistakes, who have children, right? That is going to be part of your constituency. That is going to be, they're the fornicators and their bastards. Yeah, by the way, that's
I would argue
you, me,
they,
and everybody else.
they probably need the most support, and they would definitely be one of the ones who would benefit the most by a welcoming congregation who could give their children father figures or possibly an entirely new family in God and in their personal lives. Like that is the response is wild, and that one comment that just went on the screen talking about fundamentalism.
Yeah, I mean that's the entire
Christian
reason
fundamentalism is just the other side of the coin from extremist Islam. It is the far right fringes of both groups. They are not better than each other, and they are just as dangerous.
Fundamentalism is a something of a brand name that's been co-opted and misapplied. But initially, fundamentalism as a movement was simply trying to. It was just an offensive against liberalism, which was starting to take over all the institutions. And they're basically saying, "Hey, we believe in the fundamentals of the Christian religion, including the virgin birth, the
I consider
the
myself
resurrection."
a fundamentalist.
Yeah, I mean, like it was just sort of there were. I mean, there was different definitions, but essentially there were at least 5 different sort of fundamentals of the faith that were considered like if you believe these, then you were labeled as a fundamentalist, and to some degree they self-labeled themselves because it was getting to a point where it was that radical to accept the basic truths of the gospel, and so there's definitely been some propaganda involved in painting fundamentalism as a negative position. But some of that has been self-applied. Some fundamentalists have also been, yes, a little out there and a little bit too extreme. So I'm not denying that what you're saying does exist.
Yeah,
but, you just have to be careful
when
with
I
labels.
when I refer to that, I guess I am speaking more toward that. I can't remember the group name off the top of my head, but the ones the Duggars are involved in, they the very not actually following the Bible, following a personal dogma of the leaders of the organizations, groups like the FLDS and or is it Short Creek, groups like that, not necessarily groups trying to maintain the core of the teachings.
Yeah, I don't know this Anderson character, but yeah, apparently something akin to the Westboro Baptist, which I only ever heard about as
I have not heard of this guy
punchline.
either, but
Yeah.
from this one tweet, I imagine if his sermons are worse than
hot
this,
takes.
lots of comments in the chat too about if raising somebody else, and I think that it's a very, very fine line because you do want to reduce the harm to society, which means that you need to ostracize the sort of behavior that leads to single motherhood and a lot of the other things, right? We want to have that very heavily stigmatized. But once the event has already occurred, it's our job to take care and make sure that that doesn't happen again, right? That we stop the cycle, basically. And the best way to stop that cycle is to basically cover these people or immerse these people in a good Christian fellowship, right?
That was the whole purpose of the Knights of Columbus when Father McGivney founded it, was to help single mothers and their children. That was the entire premise of why the
'Cause, like,
Knights of Columbus was founded.
If you just let them flounder, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, congratulations, single mothers made more single mothers, made more single mothers. Oh, great, your society's gone. Congratulations, right? You do have to do something as a community. I'm not saying you have to marry these people or adopt
No.
these kids. I'm saying that you have to be a good part of the community that can help, you know.
And absolutely, you
direct
shouldn't be
these people in the
shaming other
proper way.
people who are doing good things like that. And I
You
don't
say
know,
should or should not?
Who are
Sorry.
doing the good thing. We should not be shaming the people.
Yeah,
who
we shouldn't be shaming
Oh, okay.
people
Right.
for adopting black children. Like I don't understand this comment. I don't know if it's just trying to
Hook
get
is
an
I
basically
think
understanding.
he's
but
just trying to be controversial.
I think so. But this kind of thing is the sort of thing that you'll see people genuinely sympathize with, and I think it's just completely missing the mark. You cannot have that kind of racial essentialist perspective.
Well, and
It's
nobody's
just
saying
not
that
helpful.
you individually have to, like, it is your responsibility, white man, to raise the black child. Nobody's saying
Yeah.
that. Nobody's saying that. But it's your responsibility to be part of a good community that can help these people, right?
Also, don't
Yeah.
foster the problem as well. Don't go out and be a man whore either. Like it goes
Yeah.
both ways.
You don't have to adopt these children. You don't have to marry the women, but welcoming them into the church and being a good role model, especially for these young boys that probably have almost no other male role models in their lives, from their mother's lives with their family to the school system or whatever else. They probably have almost no positive role models. And just being a positive role model for some of these young kids, that's all it takes to stop the cycle for them. I mean, I've watched that. I've watched something that happened in the church I grew up in. The complete wrong thing happened, and that kid left the church feeling worse than he did when he started coming. And that's just not the kind of thing you want to see.
Mhm. And I know people in the chat are worried about this because they're essentially fed, or they're propagandized to be like, oh, you have to accept the immigrants into your home, you have to accept them into your nation, all of this sort of stuff. We're not referring to that. We're referring to, like, people already in your community. You don't have to do anything out of the normal. You don't have to really inconvenience yourself, other than just support a structure that helps these families out. Like, that's literally it. Like,
Not
it's
only that, I would say, speaking onto the immigrant thing, you don't have to like them to recognize that they're human. And if the opportunity is given to you to be able to minister to them, you should take it. That doesn't mean inviting them into your home. That doesn't mean opening the borders. That doesn't mean giving them access to all the money the government has. It means treating them with human respect and just being nice.
Yeah, and also, I mean, people are not defined by their circumstances. It is much harder to change from your nurture than it is from your nature. I mean, people are absolutely not defined by their nature, but they're more so defined by their nurture, and even that we have to believe as Christians can change by the grace of God. I mean, that is the power of the gospel to change us from the inside and to bring us into a depending on kind of what sect of Christianity you're in, a similarity or equality in some way with God. I mean, God is bringing us home, and this is the power of the gospel. This is the message that we preach, and so we should not be looking down on people, even who have made their own lives a living hell. Those people also have inherent value and can change. People can actually change. Do they often? No. Most of the time they don't. But by the grace of God, they absolutely can. And by the grace of God, many more people than otherwise would have changed. So it's
well, and when you
have
take
to.
the hard line approach like Steven Anderson does here, you don't actually do any good for the kingdom of God. You don't help anyone. Like, you just made everybody hate you and whatever you stand for. So let's say, for instance, I don't know Steven Anderson. Let's say he was right about 99% of things. Just saying this thing here is turning off people from his message, even if he was correct, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, we have the article of a deceased church, or we can, if we're wrapped up here about the hour mark, we can move into the debate section, if you gentlemen would like to.
I have to go help my wife with our kid. But I will catch the rest of this later. I'll let you guys discuss the debate then.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Well,
boss.
hey, we really appreciate it, Amorite boy. Thanks for reaching out with this, and yeah, have a good time with your wife and kids, sir.
Yeah,
God bless, man.
You
Have a
guys
good night.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Did we did you have like a video or just the actual tweet from the Pope?
I do have the tweet. Yeah. If you want to
Just
look
the
at
tweet.
Yeah,
the
let's check
tweet.
that out.
Well, the tweet and the responses are
I wanna look at the
pretty
responses, too.
pretty brutal.
It's
Now,
yeah.
we've covered Pope Leo. I think this will be the third time. He equated anti-immigration with anti or pro-choice, essentially. Like, you can't be pro-life and anti-immigration. He also blessed the ice block at the Globo Homo climate change summit thingamajig. So, there's a few. I feel bad for the Catholic bros out in the chat at times because the pontiff does seem to make some silly choices, or at least bad optical decisions.
And this guy is supposed to be like, the next gen. He's supposed to be an improvement from Francis. I don't know. I mean,
Some things he
seems-
is better than Francis on,
He-
but yeah, we can get into it.
Well,
Yeah,
was
I
speaking of poor and helping people out, wasn't the Jubilee feast for the poor? Was that today?
That was yesterday, I think.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
And they had 4 trans women at one of the tables. which
Yeah,
is-
but they didn't sit at the Pope's table, like
No, they were,
Francis
they
did.
were,
Yeah,
So
which was
we're
kind of funny.
1 degree of separation.
Mhm.
But I'll read this out. So I urge the heads of state. This is from Pope Leo XIV. I urge heads of state and leaders of nations to listen to the cry of the poorest. There can be no peace without justice. The poor reminds us of this in many ways, through migration as well as through their cries, which are often stifled by the myth of well-being and progress, which does not take everyone into account. The no peace without justice and not taking everyone into account
pretty on the
just
nose.
sounds straight up leftist,
Mhm.
Marxist philosophy. Like, you
Yeah,
will
no
hear this
justice, no peace. That's the chant.
It's
That-
the line. There can be
It's
no
like-
peace without justice. And then there's also this weird allegation or allegory to through migration as well as through their cries, which are often stifled by the myth of well-being and progress. So a very don't stop the poor from migrating into your country, and because we're in a Western country, everybody's poorer than we are, so let everyone migrate here, I suppose. Which I think Nostra Aetate, somebody else is gonna tell me how to pronounce it, but it's in Vatican II. Nostra Aetate,
Nostra
something like that.
Aetate.
Nostra Aetate. Okay, that one also has some pro-immigration language in it as well. So this is the Vatican's official stance on this. Very pro immigration into Western countries, not the other way, but to their detriment, right? And we've seen the UK is falling apart. The UK will be not UK in 20 years. We're not that far behind, and it's to unsustainable levels.
I
right?
mean,
and then
to
you
try to-
combine that. Go ahead.
To try to defend Papa Leo a bit, he did say in his James just laughs. He did have an interview, I think it was last night maybe or something, and did say nobody has said the United States should have open borders, as well as some other things. I can find the clip and maybe we can play it, but
Well, then who is he referring to when he says that the poor reminds of this in many ways through migration as well as through their cries, which are often stifled by the
He's-
myth of well-being and progress?
he's very
And
much just reciting the actual catechism, which I pulled up right here as well, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, so this is 2 heads of state. So he's saying
Mhm.
heads of state listen to the cry of the poorest, which happen to be migrants, which
Mhm.
means that you can't shut them out. He's saying you shouldn't be shutting the poorest out, right? There can be no peace without justice, and to have justice through these migrants, through the migration, you have
Yeah.
to let them in.
No,
basically.
and I'm in no way agreeing with this tweet. Like, I'm not trying to defend this tweet. Yeah, it definitely does have some Marxist Marxist takes to it. But yeah, I'll read the actual catechism.
Good.
So go ahead.
Oh no, you have it right.
Yeah, I got it pulled up. Catechism of the Catholic Church 2241. The more prosperous nations are obliged, to the extent they are able, to welcome the foreigner in search of the security and the means of livelihood which he cannot find in his country of origin. Public authorities should see to it that the natural right is respected that places a guest under the protection of those who receive him. Political authorities, for the sake of the common good for which they are responsible, may make the exercise of the right to immigrate subject to various juridical conditions, especially with regard to the immigrants' duties toward their country of adoption. Immigrants are obliged to respect with gratitude the material and spiritual heritage of the country that receives them, to obey its laws, and to assist in carrying civic burdens.
Could you read the first part of that again?
Yes. The more prosperous nations are obliged, to the extent they are able, to welcome the foreigner in search of the security and the means of livelihood which he cannot find in his country of origin. Public authorities should see to it that the natural right is respected that places a guest under the protection of those who receive him.
Yeah. See, I just disagree with that 1,000%. Like,
no, I understand completely. Yeah.
I'm not sure I do. Why do you disagree, John?
Well, so obliged, like you.
Do you want
like
the link so you can pull it up?
Sure.
Send
Yeah.
it to you.
If you can just put it in the private chat. But no,
Yeah.
I'd 100% disagree with that. Obliged to take in the foreigner, like you must. It is a moral. Like if you do not, it's a moral bad, basically.
It's in the
Because
private.
we can support those who are in need in those poor nations and countries, without pulling them physically out of their countries of origin. Like I've never understood that. It's like, oh, we want to help people in Africa, so let's take the best and brightest and bring them to America so that they are left with the lower dregs of their already like lower rank society. Like that just the language is always off to me. It's like, why? If Iceland doesn't want to take in Somalis, they are not obliged to. They have no obligation to physically remove Somalis from Somalia and bring them to Iceland. Now, they can be kind and they can help them through financial means or through sending support or other means, but why would they be obliged to physically take people from one location to another? Like I would say a nation has no duty.
I think that's the wrong phrasing, though, or perhaps the wrong framing. So it's not a question of should we be taking people, because you're talking about a pragmatic question of which would be better for the countries if they had, the best and brightest, the people that could otherwise leave, they just stayed there and made the country better, or if we took them in. I am sympathetic to what you're saying there. However, this is more a question of hospitality, which is a value that we have largely lost in modern society and used to be an extremely important value. And I think that is a different thing than just sort of the pragmatic, like what will make these countries, how can we optimize these countries? There's just a separate question of when someone comes knocking at the door, how do you respond? And that is something that I think the Bible does have something to say about. And I don't know that this statement seems about in line with the biblical teaching on this, where we do have a duty. And if nations do have any sort of a responsibility similar to the personal responsibility, national responsibility is not a one-to-one. You can't map directly an individual's responsibility onto a nation, but I do think that there is some mapping that takes place there. And I think if a nation does have some responsibility to be hospitable in the same way that an individual does, again, to the extent that they're able, and taking into account other priorities, right? So you should prioritize your own people first. If you have issues internally and you're treating the foreigner better than you're treating your own people, that might be a problem. You've shown that you've got some priorities out of whack. And if you're doing it beyond your means, that's a problem as well. So there's all kinds of caveats that are required. But I do think that if the individual has some duty towards hospitality, which I think that is biblical, then I think the nation does as well, which I think is all that they're trying to say there. Is that a fair statement?
I get that take on it, right? How do I want to word this? At certain times, I would say that this sort of thing was explicitly condemned within the biblical context in an Old Testament, for sure. Now, most of the time, it's foreigners are certainly mentioned in the Bible.
What do you mean by that?
Most of the time, it's referring to neighbors. Like, so the state of Israel like Old Testament Israel.
They
And
had
them-
some. Okay, go ahead. Still, what do you mean by that? Because there are explicit commandments in the Ten Commandments about how you treat the sojourner and how you. I mean, hospitality laws in old time Judaism was also very in favor of.
Right. So hospitality sounds well and good. Blah blah blah. Now, putting that up against this statement, the prosperous nations are obliged, to the extent they are able, to welcome the foreigner in search of the security and means of livelihood which he cannot find in his country of origin. So this is explicitly like economic gain. So this isn't like helping somebody who is like desperately in need on the side of the road who happens to be traveling through your land. This is like somebody in a faraway land that has less economic opportunity. You have some sort of obligation, to the extent that you're able, to bring them in search for the means of livelihood which you cannot find in his country of origin, right? So this is like bring people who are of a lower economic status in, right? Not helping those in need. I mean, this is so broad and vague. It could be.
Yeah, it is broad and vague.
It's very broad.
Because everybody agrees that we should help our neighbors and we should help those that are traveling, and we should, if we can, in some context. I would say in very limited context, like have refugees and stuff like that. But this seems
economic
so broad
migrants
to be
are not the same
misused.
as refugees. I totally
Well, and this
agree.
is
And-
this is explicitly saying means of
Right,
livelihood
yeah.
which you cannot find in his country of origin. Like,
fair point.
this is so broad. This is basically anyone who thinks that your country's better than his. You should be obliged to accept whatever extent you're able to bring him in.
Well,
That's
to
how wide
whatever
this
extent you're
is.
able is doing a lot of work in that statement, though.
It
Like, I
is.
think
but
someone
but
with a
what if
very
I just said
conservative,
not at all.
Well, right. I think one could make that case for a no additional migrants case, even from this statement, is what I'm trying to say. That this is not inherently a pro-immigration stance in your current context. It is pro the concept of immigration, but it is allowing
Well,
for.
it says the more prosperous nations, meaning Western nations. I mean, we all know what that means. To the extent they are able, and then it's not just the foreigner in search of security, right? The refugee, right? Fleeing persecution, fleeing whatever it might be into some country. They tag. If it was just this first part, I'd be like, okay, no, that makes sense. Like countries closer to countries that are undergoing genocide or war or something like that, you should, to some extent, be willing to take in refugees for a period of time, whatever that might be. But then it's comboed with the by the way, also those people who are less economically well off than you as well, which is quite literally everyone.
But it also
Basically.
gives like politicians the authority as well to dictate when it is good and when it is bad, like when it is acceptable and when it's not, for the sake of the common good of the nation.
Right. Well,
When I would say right now we're not in a in a place to really take any more people in.
Right.
no, I would agree with that. So that's where the pragmatism comes in. But it's, I don't know.
Reform Renegade says this is very much globalist, and I think the Pope statement is definitely globalist.
Sure.
The Catechism probably is too, right? This was written in 1984. This is post Vatican II. This is probably has a lot of globalist influence in the writing of the Catechism as well.
Sure.
That said, I think the Catechism is a
And
probably
maybe I'm
a
just
pretty
looking
fair
through
condensation
this.
of Catholic teaching.
And maybe this is just because I'm looking through this in a very modern context and a very jaded. and
That's what I
cynical
wonder.
when it comes to it. Because like if this was the 1500s, like obviously Somalis coming to, Ireland would not be a great concern, but somebody in France or something like that would be a much more reasonable expectation, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, there were Muslim travelers throughout Europe, right? People trading and stuff like that, and you were to be hospitable to these people. But these weren't like, essentially, I mean, migration when you get down to it, this is probably a topic for another stream, but migration when you get down to it, it's usually a tool of warfare in a way.
I would agree. Absolutely.
And it usually either comes before or comes after war.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's a correlation. I'm not sure. A tool of warfare. Explain that statement.
Well, so when a country is going to expand, or when a group of people are going to expand, usually there's some sort of internal economic conflict that they wants the people to move out, right? So let's say people in the Middle East are very condensed, they're very powerful, they have a lot of resources, but now they need more land, right? So
First
now
they
the people are-
expand, and then they use the fact that they have
essentially-
their
well,
numbers spread so that they
there's,
can easily take over.
what's the word I'm looking for? There's contractions, or there's expansions, right? So as things start to expand, as you get more people in a certain area, there's more reasons to migrate, right? Because now you're sharing the same amount of resources with more people. So now let's go to the neighboring country where there's fewer people there right now, and we're going to go over there. And then, like what you see in like Ukraine and Russia, right? This goes back 1,500 years, forever, basically. It's like, well, our people were there, and now we're going to take it over, and then we lost it. And we
The correlation is undeniable, and I'm sure there are some limited cases where it is a tool. I think to call it a tool generically is probably taking into account a much longer time frame than wars usually.
Tool is probably the
encompass.
wrong word.
Yeah, because I think more likely you're going to find that because a nation has expanded, or because a people has expanded, and they have started to immigrate, and now all of a sudden you do have your neighboring country has 30%, your ethnicity, and people that might be sympathetic to you. Now you're in a better position to invade, and for most of history, the rule was if you were in a position to invade, then go ahead and invade. And so I think that war naturally follows from immigration, as opposed to being like a proactive tool that countries are like, hey, let's start by growing our borders and sending out people, and then we'll go invade.
You say that, however, China has.
I'm not saying it's
done
never
this
happened. I'm
with
saying that
Taiwan and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
For instance,
It does happen.
you can look at the demographics of these places, and the older generations want to remain Hong Kong, Taiwan. The younger generations are more sympathetic to a Chinese government, which is well, interesting. You change the demographics a little bit, you have some good propaganda, and
I dropped a video in our Instagram chat of Pope Leo being questioned by the press on his statement. And he kind of elaborates a little bit more on it. Might be worth watching if you guys want to.
Let me pull it up real fast.
Yeah, and I'm very sympathetic to the idea that this is what's happening with Islamist countries, or Islam as a religion. This isn't so much a country by country, strategic decision, but more of just it's
explicitly their modus operandi in this way to expand via demographics. Yeah,
right. I mean, as a religion, that is like the modus operandi, and it might be part of the individual nations as well. But like that's something that I can get behind. Where now you're talking about an institution that is thousands of years old, that's willing to play the long game, that can afford to bide its time and wait, and just take over by population, and then once they grow strong enough, actually take over via warfare. And I believe that's pretty much the official Muslim doctrine, is to take over by population first, and then once you reach a critical mass, take over by war. And they're allowed to lie about it in the meantime, coexist.
Yes, of course. They're allowed to lie to you. What is their term for us? Kafir? Is that the one?
Kafir.
Think so? It's
I'm
cattle.
not sure.
Oh, let me turn the audio on.
Made some statements about that already. I appreciate very much what the bishops have said. I think it's a very important statement. I would invite especially all Catholics, but people of goodwill, to listen carefully to what they said. I think we have to look for ways of treating people humanely, treating people with the dignity that they have. If people are in the United States illegally, there are ways to treat that. There are courts. There's a system of justice. I think there are a lot of problems in the system. No one has said that the United States should have open borders. I think every country has a right to determine who and how and when people enter. But when people are living good lives, and many of them for 10, 15, 20 years, to treat them in a way that is extremely disrespectful, to say the least, and there's been some violence, unfortunately. I think that the bishops have been very clear in what they said, and I think that I would just invite all people in the United States to listen to them. Well, I've made some...
Sorry, let me get that off the screen. The one problem...
Every time.
Damn it. Perfect timing. The one thing that I will say is I like the first half of that sentence quite a bit. It's like, yeah, of course, everybody agrees we should treat people with dignity, with humanity, whether they're here legally or illegally. There's a process that they should go through. But he continues on in the second half of that, and he's like, well, listen, if these people have been here 10, 15, 20 years and they're living good lives, I'm like, that's very nice. but
They still
don't,
took
like,
advantage of the system. Yeah.
Well, and they're essentially thieves. So if I take
Yeah.
James's wealth and I live a really good life for 10, 15 years, James does like. It doesn't matter that I've built a good life off of somebody else's stolen good. I don't get to keep that, or at least I shouldn't be able to keep that.
But
Not only that,
that's
you're
not in
stealing.
and of itself justification for keeping it. You know, the
Yeah,
fact
and well,
that
not only that, you're
used-
taking opportunity away from people who are native to this nation.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
is displacing people, natural born people who are actually, you know, from this nation. It is taking away opportunity from them, and especially, you know, if you look at the welfare statistics and some of the other stuff, I mean, they are, I would say, explicitly stealing from American citizens, and they have been doing it successfully for 10, 15, 20 years, which
Mhm.
is even more impotence for getting them for removing them, right? And it's like, I don't know. I agree that we should strive to do it in the most non-violent manner possible, in the most humane manner possible. However, if somebody's squatting in my house and I go to remove them and they put up a struggle, I don't just, oh, well, I guess it's theirs now.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
if you have a country, and as he says, you get to determine your borders, you get to determine who comes and who goes, you also get to determine how they leave.
Yep.
You know, it's the crime for stealing is different in different countries, right? In the Philippines, I could get caned. We don't do that here in the U.S. You know, maybe that would actually, public canings would be a good thing.
What's caning?
For
Do they just
stealing.
beat the hell out of you with
They
canes in
beat you
public?
with canes. Yes, they literally beat you with canes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
They have like old women hitting you with
It's
rods.
both fun, you know, an enjoyable afternoon, and it gets the job done, right?
Get your
Well,
old people
it's-
active too. You know, body in motion stays in
That's
motion.
actually weird, because I actually think in a way that is much better for society, because it's a public display of like non-damaging violence against the perpetrator, and the like, because you wronged the community, you stole from somebody,
Mhm.
you threatened their livelihood, the livelihood of their friends, family, children, so on and so forth. And so the community beats you with reeds, basically.
Kinda
And
based.
it's also, it's very public, right? So it's
Yeah.
like people see that, they're like, oh, that's what happens if you steal. It's not going to cause permanent damage. You're just going to be really sore for a while, and you probably deserve it. And I think honestly that's better than going to jail for like 6 months or a year.
I
Yeah.
am kind of in favor of republicizing justice, at least to some degree. I don't think that it should be a spectacle in the way that it has been in the past. I do think that that does cater to a certain sin nature that can be dangerous and harmful to people's souls. But I do think that there is an element of justice that we have just hidden away. I mean, to some degree, we've just completely removed it, right? We just have an injustice system at this point. But to the extent that there is still justice, I think that we kind of hide it in the courts and the prisons. We basically never execute people anymore at all, and even when we do, it's completely, you know, under wraps. It's like I do think that there's something to be said for bringing some of this stuff back into the public square. As an example, yes, as a solemn warning, yeah, and just a reminder to all the upstanding citizens that we have a system that does carry out justice. That's an important thing for the cohesion of society.
Well, should we get into the Muslim debate?
Yeah, we better.
We should.
Yeah,
Well,
we
it's funny because Pope Leo's statement here actually does work great for Muslim immigration. So
Yeah.
I only watched a couple clips from this before.
I haven't watched this at all.
for tonight. So all I know is that I tuned in at like the, I don't know, an hour and 20-minute mark, and they were talking about IQ, and I was like, okay, let me go back to like the 30-minute mark. They're talking about IQ. I was like,
So,
this
well,
entire
we
debate just
really
on
only-
Muslim IQ.
we really only need to talk about. We might listen to some of their opening statements and then move on to the back and forth at about like the hour and 10-minute mark or so, hour mark, because that's where they really kind of start to get into it. And it really does come down to a cousin marriage versus IQ type
Oh
of thing. And,
boy.
and well, I kind of want to talk about it too, because it's fun to talk about like what the Bible does and does not explicitly condemn, although we can of course infer certain things. So let's. This is right when the debate starts. So the topic of the debate is which is best for society, Christianity or Islam. And any point now, they are 15-minute opening statements. So Daniel Haikikachu is going to give us a lot of material to talk about. So at any point you want me to stop and interject, we'll do the. We don't need to let him go for 15 minutes.
Being with us. Can you hear me? Yes.
1 second.
Quick note, I want this to be a civil debate because right now there's a massive Zionist campaign to generate as much hostility between Muslims and Christians as possible. If I can say something nice about Andrew, I respect him for not being a shill for Israel. I think we can be civil, but also very critical of each other's religions without it turning vicious. The only ones who benefit from a Muslim-Christian civil war right now is Israel, which is stoking hate so that they can continue their genocide of both Muslim and Christian Palestinians while they bleed America dry. Let's keep that larger context in mind. So the first slide, which is best for society, Islam or Christianity? Next slide. The answer depends on which standard we use to judge, traditional or secular liberal values. Traditional values include belief in God, prayer, marriage and gender roles, opposition to degeneracy, and commitment to nation and shared culture.
Does anyone have any issues with these traditional values?
Belief in God, prayer,
I mean, define degeneracy.
Well, right. That's
might
going to
be
be
some
the problem.
differences
Is
in
we
terms of-
believe that cousin marriage and marrying people under 13 years of age would be degenerate, right?
A little degenerate, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But generically, I think he is right here about the traditional values, and it is interesting to listen to a Muslim talk about degeneracy in the West because they aren't wrong a lot of the time. You know, when they're pointing out things that
So wait,
Western
with
societies.
Aisha or whatever her name was,
She was 9.
She was 9 when the consummated, right? Wait, married at 6, consummated at 9.
Yeah.
Do they have a claim on whether or not she was prepubescent at that point?
Do you want to know the funny claims about it? So
I don't know if I wanna know.
all right. Well, so here I'll get into it anyways because I watched a debate on this. So in the hadiths, which are treated as canonical within their religion, right? There is one of them saying that the prophet did not harm her when they had intercourse, right? The average length of a vaginal canal at 9 years old is about 3 inches. Therefore, the Prophet Muhammad had a micropenis canonically. So that is,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Secular
Thank
liberal
you.
values include
Yeah. So, anyways, if you want to talk about opposition to degeneracy, I mean, you know.
Well, I guess
Individual-
prayer could be a little bit discussed as well, like their form of prayer versus Christian prayer in a society.
Just traditionally prayer,
Sure,
like, even
sure,
if you were a
okay.
pagan, you could offer
Yeah.
prayers or whatnot. So this is
Mhm.
this traditional in the widest
Very
sense.
general, yeah.
Yeah.
individual freedom, gender equality, sexual autonomy, scientific progress, and economic advancement. If we judge by traditional values, Islam beats Christianity hands down. If we judge by secular liberal values, Christianity comes out on top. The reason for this is that Christianity, since the Enlightenment, has been reformed and adopted liberal values while eroding traditional ones. This is because Christianity is more open to evolving in a way that Islam isn't. My opponent, Andrew Wilson, claims to
fair,
be a traditional Christian, but we'll see if he'll...
Yes.
If I were Dan...
Dang it! Gosh, dang it!
Oh, you're good.
I misclicked.
I mean, the simple
Go ahead.
fact is that the Enlightenment and liberal values are in their very nature, they are a degradation of Christian values. I mean, that's why Christianity is more prone to that flaw. It is a unique thing that Christianity suffers from is being co-opted by liberal values, because liberal values are an excess of Christian values, right? I mean, Chesterton talks about this in Orthodoxy, which I'd recommend to anyone. Excellent book. But basically, you have it's almost worse to have an excess of a particular value that can be just as bad or even worse than a particular vice, and so you take one virtue of charity and just make that everything, and to the detriment of all other virtues, then you have sort of this liberal establishment. I don't know that charity is necessarily the correct virtue to say that they have exploded. I think it's probably a combination, but when you do that, that's what you get, and that's why Christianity is very susceptible to that issue. And so it's a fair criticism, but you have to understand the it's not that Christianity has fallen to the Enlightenment; it's that the Enlightenment came out of Christianity in a sort of perverted way, and so it's our issue. It's something that we have to fight with because we birthed it. That's not an attack on Christianity in and of itself, though.
Values while eroding traditional ones. This is because Christianity is more open to evolving in a way that Islam isn't. My opponent, Andrew Wilson, claims to be a traditional Christian, but we'll see if he'll debate like a traditional Christian or like a blue-haired libtard. If he debates as a traditional Christian, he should defend Christianity. He should defend Christianity as understood before modern liberal reforms. For example, even though he's Orthodox, I doubt he'll defend Byzantine Orthodox norms, such as theocratic monarchy, the monarch's authority to define church doctrine, slavery, book bans and speech restrictions, death penalties for blasphemy, apostasy, and pagan worship, restrictions and bans on loaning money with interest, minimum marriage age of 12.
All right, so this said traditional Orthodox Christian values. I think he's just referring to Byzantine first millennium type stuff. So theocratic monarchy, that was the order of business for sure back in the day. Monarchy is not outlawed within the Bible, just like friggin' democracy isn't like, oh yeah, by the way, all you guys have to be democracies or representative government, whatever it might be, right? Now, as far as the monarch's authority to define church doctrine by appointing bishops and controlling church councils, that wouldn't fly now. I don't think in any of the churches. I don't think it would be entwined the same way that it was back then.
I mean, there is some traditional precedent for that, but you're right. It wouldn't really fly.
Yeah, well, I just think if there was some new monarchy established, I don't think that. Well, obviously, Catholicism would not be behest to any monarchy, right? Whereas Orthodox, like maybe a local Orthodox person would.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, explicitly
I think
within
you're
Catholicism, they can't submit to any, like the Pope is the temporal supremacy, right?
In certain spheres, yeah, it depends on how you. I don't know. I don't know that that's kind of the. There is. He has temporal power, but I still think that it is curtailed in a certain way. And, if you look at sort of the broad strokes view of Christendom in some versions of Christianity, I feel like there is something, basically trying to get back to kind of a Constantine-like global civilization where you have this supreme Kwisatz Haderach
being
secular head, a monarch of some sort that has some power. I don't know. I'm not sure that's entirely. I'm not sure that it's out of the question in terms of even the way people today talk about.
I mean, maybe it's theoretically possible. Slavery, as pointed out, slavery is not a great talking point when it comes to Christians and Muslims because Christians ended slavery long before Muslims did. Book bans and speech restrictions, that's just been the normalcy throughout history. Death penalties for blasphemy, apostasy, and pagan worship. We had blasphemy laws in the books here in the U.S., so not death penalties for blasphemy, but usually, in the early church, they had anathemas and excommunications for people outside or apostasy or anything else like that. And pagan, that's always interesting because usually it wasn't like you just killed pagan people. Usually it was pagans kill Christians and then Christians kill pagans or some order therein. So it wasn't like, oh, you're a pagan, I'm your neighbor and I'm about to like stab you to death in your home at night. It's gonna be a fight. Now, restrictions and bans on loaning money with interest based. Instead, we get 50-year mortgages. And again, it's weird to call out Christians having a minimum marriage age of 12 historically throughout like the first couple centuries, while you have a minimum marriage age of 3, 6, whatever it is. So I don't know, bro. One of these looks a little better than the other.
Yeah.
Bans on divorce, mandatory veiling of women with unveiled women labeled as prostitutes, lashes for fornicators, punishing married adulterers by cutting off noses or sewing them into sacks and burning them alive, execution for homosexual acts, limits on Jews through bans on Jewish proselytizing and building new synagogues. If we look at a timeline of Christianity, for 1700 years, Christianity upheld its pre-modern norms of slavery, female subordination, monarchy, punishments for blasphemy, executions for adultery. After the Enlightenment, Christians began reforming their religion to match secular values, and that liberalizing process continues today with the acceptance of homosexuality, LGBT rights, and modern feminism. Even though he's a conservative, Andrew already accepts huge chunks of this liberal reform. He's fine with abolishing slavery, rejecting monarchy, ending blasphemy, and adultery punishments. His conservatism simply draws an arbitrary line at a later stage, roughly 1950s America. But libtard progressives follow that same reform trajectory, just a few stages or steps further. Andrew isn't defending traditional Christianity, he's defending his preferred arbitrary stopping point on a progressive path he already agrees with. In other words, the difference between him and the libtards is quantitative, not qualitative. Just a dispute over where to halt the same ongoing cucking to secular liberalism. So Andrew's conservatism is not principled, it's arbitrary. Given this, I predict Andrew will debate like a blue-haired libtard today and use a pro-liberal strategy against Islam. Because again, Christianity can't beat Islam on traditional values for the simple reason that Islam isn't amenable to reform the way Christianity is. So he'll likely attack Islam exactly like a blue-haired alphabet person would by calling Islam backwards on marriage, gender roles, and scientific and economic progress. But if Andrew attacks Islam using secular liberal values, he faces a dilemma. Because tomorrow he's debating an atheist on whether Christianity or secular liberalism is better for society. So any pro-liberal standard that Andrew uses to judge Islam today, tomorrow that same liberal standard can be used by his atheist opponent to judge Christianity. For example, if he says Christianity is better than Islam because it gives women more rights and promotes more scientific progress and health, the atheist can argue that secular liberalism does even more of those things. Andrew knows this, so against the atheist tomorrow, he'll likely revert back to a traditional Christian stance, highlighting issues like LGBT, incest, and low birth rates.
It is kind of awkward that he brings up incest when, you know, marrying your first cousin is completely fine within Islam, while explicitly condemned within Christianity and in just most of the modern West as well. I think that he's trying to have it both ways here, because if I was debating a Muslim person, I don't think you would need to go this far and be like, oh, well, you oppress women. Like, that's never the angle I would take with a Islamist. I would just say your values are off, right? Your religion is off, and it causes you to go down all of these bad paths. I wouldn't be like, Heckin's women's rights in Uzbekistan is like really my top priority here.
Yeah. Well, not only that, it just wouldn't mesh with our culture and society over here in the West. It wouldn't work, obviously, but
yeah.
Singling out Andrew, all Christian debaters code switch. They know Christianity isn't as based as Islam on traditional values, nor as progressive as secularism on liberal values. Christianity is stuck in the middle between traditionalism and secularism. So to win against either Islam or secularism, Christians have no choice but to code switch depending on who they're debating. Putting aside this conceptual problem with Christian apologetics, how do we know that Islam is better for society than Christianity? Again, it depends on what values we adopt. Muslim and Christians generally subscribe to traditional values. In fact, all humans, due to biology, inherently value things like belief in a creator, marriage, family, and community. So let's see whether Islam or Christianity is better at promoting these things in society using the abundance of empirical data available. Let's start with...
Okay, so biologically rooted psychology. All humans naturally value belief in a supreme creator, marriage, family, nation, and community. I think there's some truth to this with natural theology. Like, I think we all inherently do believe these things. There is a natural pull to this, but I wonder in what context he's going to pull this out.
With a bird's eye view, using the World Values Survey, a global project measuring beliefs, values, and cultural changes in over 100 countries. Their world cultural map from 2023 groups countries by religion. Protestant European countries are yellow, Orthodox is red, European Catholics are green, Latin America in light blue, and Islamic countries in gray. On the x-axis, countries that value individual self-expression and autonomy are further right on the graph. On the y-axis, countries that are more secular are higher up. The ones that have more traditional values are lower. So you can see in the bottom left, there are the Islamic countries that are more traditional, whereas the Christian countries are more secular and value
the African Islamic countries. So what's the most traditional? The most traditional is Qatar, apparently. With
I've actually
Egypt being the most collectivist. Good.
I've actually been to Qatar, and yeah, that does kind of make sense. Alcohol is nowhere to be seen whatsoever. It's actually a very westernized country, but yeah, that tracks.
Still rooted in their old values.
Yeah, just very, very clean streets, no degeneracy whatsoever. So, but yeah.
I like how one country, one Western country, is so like deep into the circle of Georgia.
Individual autonomy. How about belief in God? Muslim countries show higher religiosity and belief in God than Christian ones. For example, Pew Research asked people in different countries.
See, but he's using just generic belief in God as a good thing, or as in like a God or something. So like I don't really care that Bangladesh, like 100% of Bangladeshis believe in their Hindu God. Like that's
not the same, man.
That's not just that's like just generically that's not something that I think is a good thing, right? It's like, oh well, if a country is more belief in a supreme being, it's like, well, yeah, but if they worship a demon, then I don't really care that they're more quote unquote religious than this other country, right?
What's your definition of God?
Well, and that's the thing, we're using God in like a very generic way, not as in the triune creator of the universe, that sort of thing, right? The Christian Trinity.
Countries if they believe in God. For nearly all the Muslim countries, the number was 100%, to such an extent that Pew concluded that nearly all Muslims surveyed believe in God. Another Pew dataset shows Muslim countries, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, at the top of global belief rankings, while Christian countries are split, with Kenya, Ghana, and the Philippines high, but the US, Spain, and France low. What about religiosity? On this map, all Muslim countries are dark purple, showing the largest share of religious followers. Christian countries, except Latin America, are much lower, like the US, Europe, and Russia. Pew studied how important religion is to people's lives. And for Muslim countries, they're dark yellow, indicating 80 to 100%.
Yeah, but again, they're using like this very generic religious, right? So it's like if Ghana is like, not Ghana, but another South African country is like 99% animist and they worship animals. It's like, I don't care. Again, just generic religiosity doesn't provide any value. It doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah,
people saying religion
there's no relevance between the Muslim religion and Christianity when it comes to
or any of these, right? It's like people who follow religion, it doesn't it's not a good in and of itself just because a population has a higher percentage of a wrong belief. It's the same thing with atheists, right? If a country was 90% atheists, it's like, well, yeah, 90% of them are wrong.
Yeah, they're all in a community of shared belief, but yeah, it's still bad.
They're still wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, I don't care that just generically a country has a higher percentage of religiosity if their religion is wrong.
Very important to them, while most Christian countries are much lower in gray and blue. The 2024 Integrated Value Survey confirms this. In majority Muslim countries like Indonesia and Egypt, over 97% say religion is very important, whereas in Christian countries like Mexico, the US, Russia, and Germany, religion matters far less. Another key metric is religious switching. Pew shows Christianity in red has the largest net loss of followers, while Islam in green has the highest net gain from conversions. I think you're pretty behind on.
So how important is religion to people? Indonesia, Egypt, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Mexico, and then, of course, China being the most collective and the least religious, which I always find interesting. Just a very, very interesting group of people.
On the slides. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Now let's look at family and gender roles. Muslim societies have higher rates of marriage than Christian societies. Notice how the percentage of married individuals of both Muslim women and men, indicated by the red and blue arrows, is higher than Christians, since Christians are more likely to delay or forego marriage. We can also look at divorce laws. Christian countries mostly allow no-fault divorce, while Muslim countries often have fault-based divorce or other limitations on women. When it comes to fertility, Pew Research shows that Muslims are at 2.9 globally, whereas Christians are at 2.6. And even when you break it down by region, Muslims in Europe, the Asia-Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa have more children than their Christian counterparts. Muslims also have the largest families by household size, at 6.4 members per household compared to 4.5.
Now, this is just true and kind of a dangerous fact. I think he's going to mention it, but it's something like 2030, 2040 Muslims will outnumber Christians worldwide, Christians of all denominations, that is. Yeah.
For Christians,
I'm
due to both
struggling.
higher
What is
birth.
the point? Remind me what the premise of the debate is.
So
so
he's going through a lot of these, and we kind of talked about this while you were gone. But he's essentially saying what makes for better societies. Well, Muslim societies are more religious. They have a higher belief in God. They have more difficult divorces.
And that is
right?
the debate prompt: is which one
is better
have
for
a
society.
better.
So he's claiming that religiosity in general, just any religiosity, is better for a nation, is better for society. So like he's claiming like, look, Muslims have a higher degree of religiosity within their nations, which means that it's better, right? Because that's because he established it as a traditional value. We're more religious than you in higher percentages, so therefore we're better than you, right? But the counterpoint to that is like, if a nation is 99% animus, right, and they worship animals, like I don't care that they're generically religious, right? It doesn't make their society better.
Right. And I think to the point he made earlier, because I was listening offline when you guys were playing. So he makes the point about how Andrew is going to have to argue in a way. When he's arguing with a Muslim, he's going to start to appeal to liberal values, which might be true. I kind of doubt it though with Andrew, but we'll see. However, I would certainly defend that approach because this is the beauty of Christianity. Christianity, and this is another thing that Chesterton points out. Chesterton was a Catholic, but he started out Anglican, eventually converted to Catholicism towards the end of his life. But brilliant sort of classic conservative writer, very paradoxical in his writing, so can be a little bit frustrating if you are allergic to paradoxes. That's just how he likes to write. It's not always plain, but it's just sort of very pithy statements that are extremely witty, but could also be perhaps twisted or not always helpful if you want something that's like a direct literal instruction how you should act. But overall, great writer. But he makes the point that one of the beautiful things about Christianity is that it does find the mean between extremes. It is accused from both the right and the left as being, in one sense, too gaudy with all of its ornate, respectful iconography and beautiful churches and things like that. And then from the other side as being too loving to the poor and too from like the Nietzsche's of the world, too in favor of the slave morality. It's like it does get attacked from both sides, and that is actually a symptom of it perhaps being true. That is a evidence for it actually having found the correct path between these extremes. Aristotle was the philosopher of the mean between the extremes. That's where that term comes from, as far as I understand. And that was his sort of ethics, was you'd have this vice and this virtue, and you kind of, he wouldn't have called it that, but you'd have these two extremes that are both, I guess, vices in a sense. They're both too extreme, and you find the correct path. And Aquinas, in many ways, was also a common sense philosopher or common sense theologian, where he just sort of found the path between these extremes, and that's what Christianity does. And so, simply saying that, hey, you are not, when talking to one extremist, as Muslims are from a Western perspective always going to be extremists just by nature of their belief system, simply pointing to the fact that they are coming from a less extreme position that, if you took it too far in the other direction, would become also an extreme bad position. That is not in and of itself an argument against that position, right? So if that makes sense, right? Someone coming from this, and I'm not talking about left-right paradigm. I'm just saying if someone is making this stance and saying that someone else who's right here is going to attack him from the left on this continuum, that is not in and of itself. You can't then say that because they're attacking from the left, they're all the way over here on this side of the left. That's just not a fair attack.
Right. And I mean, I do get where the Muslim is coming from on this, because you're on one side of the political spectrum, right? So of course there's going to be somebody in between you and the progressive lefties, right? But as a Christian, you can just go after the Muslims' values. You don't even need to appeal to something progressive, right? You can just
Which I assume is what Muslims might do.
Yeah.
James, what the hell are you drinking?
Good question.
It looked fruity.
This is an excellent martini. This is it's called a French horn, but if you order it in a restaurant, you got to be careful to pronounce the N with extra precision, because they might think you say a French whore, and that's a very different drink. Or
maybe you're just giving a sermon,
Yeah, exactly. But
stop supporting these French
true
whores.
Story. Yeah, speak from personal experience. But it's so what it is, and you can sugar rim it or not if you prefer not to have something.
Oh, it's sugar. It is.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
salt.
No, not with this one. So this is 2 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 1.5 ounces of Chambord, which is a French black raspberry liqueur, and shake it up with ice. Pour it out in a martini glass, preferably with a sugar rim. It just kind of accentuates the taste, and it is delicious. It's not very decadent. It's perfectly blended. It does look a little bit fruity, but
That just reminds me of like the quote in Casino Royale where James Bond is explaining his drink, and the other guy's like, "I'll take two."
Yeah.
Yeah, give me that one too.
So
Yeah, it's
James
funny. Me
Bond
and my
drinks
wife
is
watched
that's
this a little while ago.
that's the Vesper, and it's
Yeah.
2 measures of Gordon,
Of
no,
course
3
you have
measures
it
of
down.
Gordon,
Yeah.
1 of
Yeah.
vodka, and half a measure of Quino Lillet. And you shake that up, and you put a little bit of lemon slice around the side, and that is also a very good, very well balanced martini. It's mostly gin martini. And yeah, it's quite good. I make it with Gordon's, which is a pretty cheap gin, but all in all, it always works out as just a, I don't know, for some reason the little bit of vodka and the Gordon's really mixes well, and then just that little bit of Quino Lillet, which is a white wine, just adds a tiny bit of fruit to it. I don't know, it makes it work. It's not overly alcohol-y in flavor. It just kind of cuts right through the alcoholness, and it makes it blend really well, and it's just a delicious drink. But
The
this is
liquor
also very good.
connoisseur.
Yeah.
Muslims also have the largest families by household size, at 6.4 members per household compared to 4.5 for Christians. Due to both higher birth rate and higher net conversions, Islam is the fastest growing religion projected to meet and exceed the Christian population in 25 to 50 years. How about sexual behaviors? Research in American Sociological Review show Muslims, due to religious conviction, are less likely to have premarital or extramarital sex than Christians. Some Christians might claim this is only due to self-reporting bias because Muslims are less likely to admit to engaging in these behaviors. Some Christians might
Now that's actually a really good point though, because yeah, if you ask a Muslim man, "Hey, did you have premarital sex?" What's he gonna say? No, of course not. You know, and it also doesn't help that when you say Christian, you're man who self-identifies as Christian while holding no traditional Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
Is a huge amount of people. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of selection bias. There's a lot of perhaps personal bias that comes into these. So I don't taking these.
Well,
I don't
because
know if they're
Christianity-
worth anything.
Christianity does believe in personal liberty in the sense that you should, if you're going to be a Christian, you should actually believe in Christianity. Whereas Muslims are willing to force conversions. Christians have been willing in the past, but generally have come to the opinion that that's not okay. And so that's going to create a very large social difference in terms of whether or not people are willing to say, you know, be nominal Muslims or nominal Christians, because Christianity in Christian countries, we've basically allowed for people to say, if they don't actually believe it, to say that openly, whereas in Muslim countries, you only have one choice.
might claim this is only due to self-reporting bias because Muslims are less likely to admit to engaging in these behaviors, but we can account for this by benchmarking against other variables like medical abortions and death rate from HIV/AIDS, which directly correlate with extramarital sex. Data shows abortion rates are highest in Christian regions and death from AIDS are highest in Christian countries in Africa, Russia, and Latin America, but lowest in North Africa, the Middle East, and other Muslim regions. Regarding acceptance of homosexuality, Pew shows Christian countries are far more accepting, even after controlling for economic factors. Regarding attitudes towards gender equality, World Value Survey asked whether men make better leaders than women, do men have more of a right to a job than women, etc. They took the answers to these questions to create a grading system which shows that Muslims are far below Christians. Now, if we were a bunch of liberal simps, we would count this in favor of the Christians. But since we're all red-pilled, we recognize that the Muslim countries are based and the Christians are simping. Same when it comes to other gender equality metrics. Christian countries, whether in the West or Latin America, Russia, value gender equality more than Muslims. That's a bad thing for many reasons. Looking at other societal health metrics, research shows Christian countries have much higher rates of alcohol and drug abuse. Controlling for economic differences, Muslim countries...
Well, yeah, of course they have higher rates of alcoholism because they are not banned from making alcohol.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, look
it's
at James.
kind of,
come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that different from the argument where he said we have fewer gay people, we have fewer trans people. It's like, well, yes, you throw them off the roof. It's kind of like the Netherlands claiming
Is
that
he
they
wrong?
have.
Is he wrong?
Somehow, I don't know. Not going to get into this, but it's kind of like the Netherlands or one of the Scandinavian countries claiming that they have basically cured Down syndrome, and it's like, well, how have you done that? Well, we abort all the Down syndrome babies. We
Yeah.
detect it early. It's like that's not the same thing.
It's called
you know.
eugenics.
Right.
It's only
Exactly.
based when we murder babies, though.
Right.
have lower homicide rates than Christian countries. Stephen Fish's book, Are Muslims Distinctive?, shows per capita murder rates are significantly lower in Muslim countries. Female homicide rates are also lower. Rates of rape and sexual violence are likewise lower in Muslim countries.
Yeah, I just don't buy any of that. I don't know if you can even say that rape is lower if you have forced marriages. Like as long as the women are forced into it, but it's not rape because of something or other. And also it comes into, I don't even know how you can collect data in some of these countries, how accurate it is, right? It's like in the West we have pretty good means of collecting data in a reasonable way, and I even have problems with it in the West. But then it's like, okay, Sudan, let's get the rates of rape in Sudan. It's like, well, of course they're lower because they're never reported.
Conspicuously missing from these stats are rates of bestiality.
Don't pull that one up. No.
Oh, man.
It's like, well, yeah, if the rape is never reported, it doesn't get counted, right? Whereas rapes might even be over-reported in the West.
Countries and highest in Christian countries. Multiple studies show that the suicide rate for Muslims is much lower than Christians. These stats show Islam
The suicide
outperforms
bombing
Christianity
rate,
and
though, much higher.
Right. It's like when we control for terrorist actions, it's like,
holding religion, marriage, family, and community, making Islam better for society. We can examine why Islam consistently excels in these areas. First, Muslims are much more attached to religion than Christians because Islam is more compelling and intuitive than Christianity. For example, monotheism is easier to grasp than the Trinity. Islam is also more historically preserved. Carbon dating confirms that the Quran...
I think that he is right there because Islam is much simpler for stupid people.
It has to be.
I mean, I think it is more compelling when you have a 81 IQ.
Muslims read today traces to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By contrast, the Bible has evolved through layers of editing and reflects the theology of Paul far more than the teachings of Jesus. Islam also has better preserves traditional life and family through a clear, comprehensive system of Sharia. Christianity, by contrast, offers only broad, highly malleable principles that different Christian groups interpret in conflicting and often contradictory ways. A Christian rebuttal could be that even if Islam excels at traditional values, it falls short on secular ones like individual freedom, self-expression, and scientific or economic progress. Christianity, they could argue, wins overall because it blends the best of both worlds, preserving core morals while still enabling the modern achievements of the Christian West: more freedom, science, technology, and higher GDP. This argument has fundamental problems, however. First, is Western prosperity due to Christianity or secularism? For example, how much of Western greatness comes from pre-Christian traditions like Greece and Rome? Furthermore, if Christianity drives prosperity, why haven't the oldest Christian nations like Ethiopia and Armenia matched the West's
Pause for a
success?
second.
Likewise, recently Christian...
How do they think Greece and Rome got to us? Like, are you familiar with the old slogan that Rome conquered Greece, and then Christianity conquered Rome? And that's why we have Roman and Greco philosophy and culture today, is because Christianity preserved it. Nah, actually, in part, Muslims preserved it as well. They did play a role in that as well. But it's like, it is a very true statement that Christianity conquered Rome. The barbarians moved in, many of them were Aryans, but ultimately Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, won out. And Roman law is preserved in canon law. The way that we have the enduring legacy of Rome, and by extension Greece, because Rome was enamored with Greco philosophy and mostly philosophy as well, that is all ushered into modernity through Christianity. So I'm trying to parse them out is something of a fool's errand. You're actually just conflating things, because the version of Rome and Greece that we have today is filtered through Christianity.
Societies like El Salvador and the Philippines have no comparable prosperity. Finally, why do more devoutly Christian societies have higher poverty and violent crime than more secularized Christian ones? Therefore, it's far from clear that Christianity is the...
Sorry, with his point there, why do more devoutly Christian societies have higher poverty and violent crimes? They have higher poverty because usually they're in Africa and South America. Like, they're just from more poor areas, right? They're not West. They're very Christian, but they're not like what we would consider like traditionally Western, right? Which happens to have, I guess, a certain like societal norm that most African and South American countries just don't have, right?
Have higher poverty and violent crime than more secularized Christian ones. Therefore, it's far from clear that Christianity is the secret sauce
Also
to scientific and
probably
economic progress.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that a lot of these places have a touchy relationship with communism. Although
I'm not sure about Africa as much, but South America for sure. For sure.
That's a good point.
But there's a deeper problem. Mixing traditional and secular values never works. It's like mixing paint and paint thinner. Whenever societies try to combine traditional and secular values, traditional values get abandoned. This is actually what has happened in the West, which was deeply Christian 200 years ago, but now has become the center of atheism and secular decay. This didn't happen overnight. This happened because Christians 150 years ago tried to mix traditional Christianity with the secular idea of progress. This happens because traditional values are based on duties. Preserving religion requires imposing duties on people to worship. Preserving family requires imposing duties limiting sexual freedom and providing care for children and the elderly. Preserving a nation requires duties to uphold shared norms, honor national symbols, or limit immigration. So preserving traditional values necessitates all these duties. The problem is duties are hard work requiring personal sacrifice. Because of this, duties necessarily restrict individual liberties while also generating inequality and discrimination. This is a problem for secular liberalism, which strives to free people burdened by duties. So the secular liberal system gradually eliminates duties to maximize individual freedom. This is done through two means: moral progress and scientific progress. Moral progress means, for example, liberating women by telling them they don't have a moral duty to serve their husbands. Scientific progress means inventing AI companies for the elderly so that little Bobby doesn't have to spend time talking to grandpa. Usually we think of progress as a good thing, but clearly progress can seriously damage society, because if you get rid of duties, this will weaken institutions of religion, family, and nation. The decay has been ongoing in the West since the 18th century, when liberal ideology kickstarted moral and scientific progress.
Right, so
consequently, yes, the
calling out the excesses does not. I mean, this is what Catholics say all the time, right? The excesses don't undermine the rule, right? And while I don't necessarily agree with the conclusions of the way that Catholics are using that to defend, I don't agree with the ultimate authority that Catholics are trying to uphold with that statement. I agree with the principle that you can't just call out abuses and excesses and say that, see, that proves that the fundamental institutions are flawed. And that's what we have here. We have a similar type of argument where someone is simply calling out the excesses and saying that that proves that there is a flaw in the underlying principles. And that's just not... it's a fine argument. It's a fine little bit of inductive evidence you can throw in, but it's far from a conclusive, syllogism. It's just it is it's can be there's so many ways you can poke holes in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very fine to point out where Western society has gone astray, when we've become too tolerant, when we've essentially allowed these things to happen, because I think he is right there, that as a society, we do kind of have to impose duties on each other, that we have like a moral duty to uphold the fabric of society. And so there are things that we have to either socially ostracize or like socially enforce that we don't do these things, right? Like drag queen story hour, whatever it is.
The West has the highest GDP, but religion, family, and nation are weak, and people live as atomized individuals pursuing endless pleasure through tech-driven consumption. If you watch tech elites shaping Western society, you'll notice their transhumanist vision, Neuralink AI, etc. This is the logical endpoint of unchecked moral and scientific progress. The question is, which religion can stop this? Christianity has already adopted liberal secularism.
But those are overtly non-Christian. I mean, those are coming from an overtly non-Christian perspective. And it is a non-Christian perspective that Christians have allowed to coexist with them by virtue of their belief in, religious liberty and personal conviction and the importance of that. That's why we have these people that are clearly anti-Christian living among us, pushing these values. And so, I mean, there's something to criticize there, but it's not Christianity.
Well, right. The thing is, we should be more Christian, right, rather than less, right? Because exactly. OnlyFans is not a Christian value, right? It's an antithetical to Christian values,
right?
And reformed itself by those standards. Even the most conservative Christians, like Andrew, won't take the radical steps needed to turn back the clock 200 years and stop the inevitable transhumanist future. The most radical thing that Andrew calls for is banning OnlyFans, maybe putting Christians in charge of America's government so that they can ban abortion, trans kids, and introduce public prayer. This won't stop, let alone this won't slow down.
I mean, that's a great start right there. Those four things. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you have the power to ban OnlyFans, institute school prayer, and putting Christians in positions of power, like, if you've achieved that level of power, you can change the fabric of society.
I'm curious what he's going to say the Muslim solutions are.
I don't know if he proposes any solutions. I think it's just a dig on Christianity.
Okay.
Let alone stop the freight train.
He does.
Speeding humanity toward destruction.
Here we go.
Islam, by contrast, offers the Sharia, comprehensive moral and legal. Sure. A comprehensive moral and legal framework that governs every dimension of life, individual conduct, family structure, community obligation.
As you're sipping on your fruity martini, maybe I'm like, maybe he has a point. Maybe we do have to ban. No.
and social order. It does not merely tweak the secular liberal system, it represents a fundamentally different paradigm. And because Islam preserves a duty-based morality rather than dissolving it, it retains the internal resources to resist the liberal atomization and technological dehumanization.
Thank you very much for that opening from Daniel.
Use the full 15 minutes.
I've got the timer set for you, Andrew, on your first word.
Good job, man. The fun thing about debate is you get to actually get in the mind of your opponent. What? What happened? Oh. The fun thing about debate is you get to actually get in the mind of your opponent. You get to study and dissect the things that they say and believe. After watching Daniel for hours, a few things became obvious. The first, he's a far better Muslim apologist than I am a Christian apologist, that's for sure. But he's far weaker on politics than myself and the nature of the world. The second is that he's an above-average debater, but he ain't quite God tier. See, if I were Daniel and fighting from his worldview, I'd point out Christianity is fractured and weak, that Christianity is totally incapable of fighting back against the degeneracy of our time. Its impotence has led to social categories of degeneracy at levels nobody could have predicted, especially with the advent of the internet. I would point out Muslim societies don't work that way, that Muslims have feminism and degens under control, that everything in modern-day Christians in the West are fighting for against degeneracy, Islam has already achieved in their lands. That's what I would do if I were Daniel. When talking about which is better for society, Islam or Christianity, this becomes a powerful argument. But I'd go a step further if I were Daniel. I'd also say my opponent will argue like an atheist progressive. That Andrew Wilson, the guy who promotes anti-feminist and egalitarian doctrine, is going to sit up here and act like an egalitarian progressive and cry about Islam being mean to the women and cry about Islam not being very nice to the gays. Well, you were fucking wrong. Sadly for Daniel, while this tactic would normally be effective against a sewing circle Christian, I'm not part of that cast, sir. Now, let me get into my argument for why Christianity makes better societies than Islam, and it's pretty simple. Islamic societies breed an inbred population. Next slide, please. Muslim inbreeding has been occurring at a high rate for about 1,400 years since the early Islamic period, encompassing most of the land still occupied by Islam today. It spread from the 8th to the 15th century, moved into Persia, North Africa, South Asia, where it remains and has created some of the dumbest fucking human beings on planet Earth. The most common type of inbreeding is first cousin marriage. The rates of first cousin marriage in comparison to Christian nations is staggeringly high, even in comparison to regions occupied by Arab Christians. When a nation has both Christians and Muslims, Muslims are often double or higher than Christians. Example, India, Lebanon. Next slide, please.
For some reason, they didn't get his slides up on the actual debate stream, which is a little disappointing because I would like to see the stats and figures that he has up. So, come on, modern day debate. What's your problem?
Muslim inbreeding. Oh, sorry about that. Pakistan at 65%. 65%, meaning more likely than not, you're having sex with your cousin, and if you're not, you're the weird one. Okay? For the low IQ members of MDD, that means these people are more likely than not having sex with their aunts or uncles' children. Whew, Saudi Arabia, 50 to 58%, with an average 76 IQ.
See, we're all cringing at that, and what's funny is Daniel is going to say, hey, it's not banned in the Bible. That's going to be his response to it.
Q, who would have thought it? UAE, 54%, 82 IQ. The crown jewel of the Arab world, you are more likely than not to be banging your first cousin. Iran, 40%, 80 IQ. Yemen, 45%, 62.9 IQ. Qatar, 30%, 80.8 IQ. Now, we're going to continue, right? Oman, 36%, 78. Syria, 39%, 74 IQ. Turkey, 25%, 86 IQ. Jordan, 32%, 80 IQ. Egypt, 32%, 76 IQ. It goes on and on and on, and it just never gets better. Next slide, please. Thank you. Compared to Christian countries, let's take a look. Usually less than 1%. Now, I wonder why Christians build better societies, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's keep going. We want to pull up the slide here, moving right along. As countries become more Christian, inbreeding declines, right? We can see this from church intervention in Spain, 20 to 30% post-Reconquista. Catholic Church banned cousin marriages for commoners, papal dispensations sold for royals. Italy, similar high rates in the medieval period. The church enforced bans over the century. France, high medieval. Canon law prohibited marriage.
This is kind of amusing. So it is at least so far, it's been a single factor analysis, right? But what it is a single factor analysis to explain a phenomenon that we all already know is true, that Christian countries obviously produce better nations. That's sort of the assumption. That's the miasma. That's what we all already assent to. And he's just providing a single factor analysis of why that's the case. Inbreeding. Okay. It's not a bad argument. Probably not the entirety of the argument. I think there are plenty of other cultural arguments you could make about why Islamic culture and religion and their presuppositions lead to not only inbreeding but all kind of other things that also cause issues in their societies. But ultimately, Andrew is basically just expecting that everyone already understands the point that Christian nations are better societies than Muslim nations. And I think that that's kind of right. I mean, technically it's not a great argument, but it is basically true that like we all just sort of know this. This is, you look at Saudi Arabia and you look at the U.S. and you think, yeah, we're probably better.
Yeah, in some ways. Although I think that, I mean, it really depends. If you look at a clean street in the UAE in Dubai, and then you look at downtown Portland, and you're like, you see a mile-long homeless camp, and you're like, some problems. Now,
you're comparing the best to the worst, though.
No, I know,
you're comparing
but
the best
I'm just saying.
of Saudi, or you're the best.
Well, what's
of
the
Islamic
best American
societies.
city?
The best American city.
See, it's a little rough. It's a little rough. Like, and I grew up going to Portland and Seattle, and I'm like, those places are not cool. Not cool anymore. It's like L.A. No, San Diego. No, it's like New York.
Well, what's your metric of best, right? Because you're just looking.
Well,
at
I'm
all
just
the
saying,
big
like
ones.
cleanliness. Like, let's talk about street cleanliness in some of these places.
San Diego actually wasn't too bad, to be quite honest. Like leaps and bounds from LA.
I just think that you could take some examples of other countries that look very nice and are Muslim majority. Now, you can infer, like, statistically, and there's other metrics you can use than just inbreeding, but you could say, what percentage of people are moving from Western Christian countries to Muslim majority countries versus the opposite? And it's like,
right. I mean, I think the moral of the story is
99% one
single
way.
factor analysis is not generally a great idea, right?
It's
Cleanliness,
it's
not a great single factor.
It's a good polemic, right? And so that's what Andrew is using here. Right, and it's going to be a hammer throughout the
and
debate. That's all
it's
it
a
is.
single factor that probably does have a greater than, I mean, it certainly has a statistically significant impact on things like IQ, which does have a statistically significant impact on things like how great your society is. So I don't think it's a bad single factor to emphasize. I'm curious if Daniel will poke holes in it, but yeah, I mean, I think it probably does have an outside impact.
Well, I wonder if there is another. Do you guys think there's a factor that would be larger than that? Outside of just the religions themselves? Like the biggest biological reason is either going to be race or inbreeding, right? Which is also like a.
Yeah, I mean,
the
I
same
think
thing,
Sharia law is just not as good. I think that it is not conducive to good society. Because I'm Christian, and because it just has fundamental issues. It does not allow for liberty in the way that Christianity does. Christian liberty is a core fundamental concept within Christianity that I'm not sure that there's really any parallel in Islam. And yes, the excesses of that do result in all kinds of evils, legitimate evils. And yet,
yeah, it's kind of
still better.
Do you want a primitive society that has like really strict social values, even though we don't agree with them, or do you want a technologically advanced society that has excesses and degeneracy?
Right. And right. So like, if I was debating Daniel, which I'm not a debater, but if I was, I would be, using the tactic that Daniel was all prepped to go against, where it's like, for me, it's about the way that Christianity is able to, on the whole, yes, is better because we're able to find the mean between the extremes, and the excesses are, even by Christian standards, excesses. They're not part of Christianity. You can't group those in as being part of Christianity. They're things that Christians would be willing to fight against in the same way that Muslims would be willing to fight against. And that's not in and of itself a draw.
Within 4 degrees,
tactic probably works better against Daniel in this particular debate. So,
Yeah, and it's also, to be clear, this is also Andrew's audience because he puts on the debate con. Right. So he's playing to his crowd here.
relation. Modern Western Europe, it's not just the cultural norm, but let me tell you exactly how much of a cultural norm it is. Even in European nations where marrying your first cousin is legal, they don't do it because of the ecclesiology. Isn't that wild? Africa shows the more Christians and less Muslim the societies become, the better they do. Let's just take a look at Nigeria. Okay, we can go down the list here. 50% Nigeria, 20 to 30% first cousin marriage. Isn't that crazy? Now let's move right on down. You can see South Africa, Muslim 1.5%, very low on to negligible in the national prevalence of cousin fucking. Whew. You can look at the list. It's pretty comprehensive. We can continue to go, right? The bottom 20 least productive sub-Saharan African countries. Wouldn't you know it? They're all Muslim. 99% Muslim in Somalia. Whew, very high. 60% first cousins. Anybody ever hear a joke about Somalian IQ? Let's look over at Niger, 99% Muslim.
Well, hey, they're not very productive. That means they need to have access to our economic zone here in the U.S., right? Wasn't that the line?
60% cousin marriage. First cousin marriage. Let's take a look at Muslims. When we're taking a look at Malil, it's a 90% population, high cousin marriage. In other words, everywhere Islam goes, the IQ goes like this because they all are fucking their cousins. Not joking. Go over to the next slide, please. I want to show you this is a famous case. These are called the rat people of Pakistan. It's a condition known as microphalics. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I have no idea. And it's caused by excessive inbreeding. When's the last time you went to a European country?
Sorry, I gotta look this up. You said
Microphaliacs.
I gotta be careful. Microphalic. Nope, that's not it. Microphaliacs. Rat. I don't know if I am. How do you spell it? Is it F or PH?
Micro.
I wish we just had the slide up, but.
Just look up microphallus and see what comes up.
What is a micropenis? Microphallus, an abnormally small penis. Yeah, when I type in microphaliacs, I don't know, maybe I'm just spelling it wrong. Anyways, darn it.
Country and saw that.
Hook said microphalia.
Yeah, is he trolling me though?
I don't know.
Micro also has
Microcephalia is a condition where a baby's head is smaller than expected for their age and sex, which can be caused by genetic issue, infections, or problems during pregnancy. So inbreeding causes it, is what he's getting at.
Microcephalia.
Okay. So microphilia or microcephalia in Pakistan, MCPH5, which accounts for up to 70% of cases.
Damn.
This mutation was found in 10 out of 12 families in 2021. Yikes.
You don't see it. Inbreed, yeah. Now, hang on. Next slide, please. As we continue, let's just take a look here at the casual link between cousin humping and low IQ. Basically, there's increased homozygosity, I think that's how it's pronounced, for deleterious recessive genes, and it is the strongest causal link for why the IQs are so low.
I'm not trying to
Genetic
look that
risk. Inbreeding raises the chances of inheriting 2 copies of harmful recessive genes. Brain development impact. Harmful genes can impair neurodevelopment, reducing cognitive potential. IQ reduction evidence. First cousin offspring lose 3 to 4 points on average, and closer inbreeding can cause larger deficits. They've been at it for 1,400 years. Whew. Higher prevalence equals greater risk. Populations with widespread cousin marriage show more individuals with lower cognitive performance. Generational compounding over successful generations.
Harmful genes accumulate. Pretty effective. I'm really curious to see what the Muslims' approach is. But,
Daniel is sweating right now, dude.
He really looks like he is.
Yeah.
This is a curveball.
One of the big Muslim copes you'll hear.
Well, yeah, it's essentially Andrew just sidesteps all of your arguments and is like, you're actually too retarded to understand my argument.
Right, exactly.
Hear from Daniel tonight. Well, it's only 1.5% for genetic problems for normal people who aren't having sex with their first cousin. Well, that's true. He says that it only doubles to 3%. That's very low. No, it compounds. See, if you hump your first cousin and then those kids hump their first cousin and their kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, down the line, guess what happens to your IQ? Guess what? You'll never guess. Anybody got a guess? It goes down. The negative consequences of a low IQ. 80 IQ versus 100 IQ person. Income 50 to 70% lower. Welfare dependency 4 to 6 times higher. Literacy less than 10% at less than 85 IQ. Obesity up almost 2 times, chronic disease up to almost 2.5 times, life expectancy less than 70 IQ or 75 IQ down 5 to 10 years. Why? Because, well, you might just look down the barrel.
And that is why the American healthcare system is so screwed up. Fantastic.
Of that shotgun when you're cleaning it. Moving over, arrests and incarcerations 3 to 8 times higher. Violent offenses 4 to 6 times higher. Teen pregnancy 3 times higher. Child neglect and abuse 3 to 7 times higher. Intergenerational poverty 4 to 6 times. Almost every study available shows that IQ entering the low 80s, Muslim countries, affects nearly every aspect of life in a negative way. Economic
I'm kinda surprised.
prospects, criminality.
I guess I'm a little surprised they didn't put a blast shield around Daniel before.
Be like, hey, the glass is not to protect him; it's actually to protect you guys. You see him like reach in and start to open it up, and there's like wires. And...
That suit's looking awfully blocky.
Whoa, big there.
Yeah.
He says his opening statement. It was like, that'll be all. You don't get your opening statement.
Debate over.
Mental.
Mic drop. It's gonna be a not instead of a mic drop, it's a
dead man switch
push.
drop.
Yeah.
Physical health, happiness metrics, and both at the individual and societal level. In fact, study shows that when a country has a sub-90 IQ average, they find it difficult to have basic innovation, infrastructure, professional class, and other basic needs of a functional society. Is that sounding familiar yet?
I feel like
now here's
I feel like in this day and age of AI, you could actually create a
It'd be very
version
easy
of
to
this
do.
video. It'd be very easy where he just reaches up under his hat and pulls out a detonator and the whole thing explodes, right? I mean, you know, I'm not a huge fan of what AI is doing to society, but that might be one of the little blessings.
Oh,
little
AI is
silver
going to come up in this debate.
Oh, really?
I don't know if we'll get to it, so I'll just go through it. But Daniel's going to say, listen, AI is going to nullify the difference between high IQ people and low IQ people because we'll all have access to AI.
Oh,
and
that's
it's
what
gonna
you think. Oh,
Well, it's like, well, you understand that the high IQ people will be able to use AI to their advantage while you will be tricked and fooled by it.
The low IQ people are, yes, going to be tricked and fooled and just hooked on really, AI
slop,
hyper-realistic
essentially.
AI porn.
Yeah.
Porn.
In
Slop
a
and
way,
porn. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
You know,
it's
just-
like crack
it's
to inner city neighborhoods in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's going to affect the poorest and dumbest, which is sad. Yeah.
Yep.
the thing that's interesting. Modern societies don't require everyone to be a genius. Just look at me. But they do rely on a distribution of abilities, and you can see their roles below. 70 to 85, basic job, practical skills, routine labor. That's Islam. That's almost every Islamic nation, ladies and gentlemen. 70 to
So IQ is interesting in this regard because you can see, like, if you don't have an 85 IQ, like, you can't get a 10th grade education. So your prospective roles in society are very low, right? And that's not to say, like, there are plenty of stupid people out there. I believe that I'm kind of a stupid person, so I think that you can do very well, and I'm not saying you're worth less or anything else like that. But if your entire country is between, like, half of your population is between 70 and 85 IQ, you got really big problems because you actually don't physically have enough people with a high enough IQ to actually run society in what we would consider like a modern Western way, right? Which is why you don't have innovation, you don't have infrastructure. So, like, you might have, vehicles and roads and whatnot, but all your roads are dirt, and then they wash away every year. And all sorts of other problems that hold. It's like, why can't these nations improve? We've given them all this stuff. We've given $400 billion to Africa over the last 20 years. It's like, right. It's not fixing the fundamental problem, though, for a lot of these people. And
Well, I think it just emphasizes also the fact that IQ is one of those things that is, like, you can change it over time, right? Muslims have done a great job of changing it for the worse over time.
Well, it's actually,
it can also work in the other direction, right? It's like see the
but
Jews.
doing it in the other direction is very difficult. Like, we're talking hundreds of years.
1,400 years of de-evolution, yeah, of reversing what they have
Because
done.
you essentially have to, like, perfect nutrition and breeding to a eugenicist level for hundreds of years, right? So in
I don't
Western
think it's
countries,
just about breeding, though. I mean, I think a lot of IQ is
well,
also
like, you
just
can't
about culture.
keep marrying your cousins.
Yes, but I think that there's a huge nurture component to IQ. I mean, I think that the Jews have got to be evidence of that because surely there's got to be some inbreeding in that as well when you can just consider the populations, and yet they just have generally a much higher IQ on average. And so I think a lot of it does have to do with the nurture in the society. I think that, and over time, as you sort of cultivate certain traits in your culture, it will lead to a higher IQ. So I don't think it's all just good breeding. It still takes time. It takes time even to impact cultures. It takes time to let those effects ripple through, even if they're just societal impacts or cultural impacts. But it is something that can change. But yeah, Muslim cultures tend to go in one direction.
Well, so I looked it up because I was interested. So the Jews that have a higher IQ are European Jews, so Ashkenazi Jews. Like Jews from Israel, Oriental and Arabic Jews, Semitic Jews, right? Hasidic Jews, 91 to 84. So it's actually not that good. So Jews in European countries, very, very high IQs.
But doesn't that
I think
go
they
more
have
to
the
my
highest
point as well?
Well, but I think you have to stop the inbreeding. So, like, for instance, if we're like, we want to uplift Africa, how are we going to normalize the IQs over a long period of time? Let's say we are given ultimate power in the world and we're going to, like, fix everybody. Like, we have to essentially go in there and remove their culture and outlaw/ban a bunch of things, essentially like the clergy did in the medieval period, right? And for hundreds of years, slowly improve all of the factors to equalize IQ at some point in the future, right? But it would take a lot of, what I'm saying is it would take a lot of force to get there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I just think that it's not.
Well, like if you say, okay, well, we're just gonna nurture them, right, and we're gonna change their circumstances, like the power it would take to actually stop them from doing these, like we would have to treat them like children.
Yeah,
essentially.
Well, yeah, that's what
right?
happens when you're dumb.
Well, I know, but we would be saying to these third worlders essentially, hey, you're too stupid to live your own life. Me, the Westerner, is going to tell you exactly what you're going to do by force, basically, right? And I mean that is eugenics almost, in a way, right?
Not necessarily.
We're going to control every.
Depends. Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to do it socially, right? So we would Christianize
IQ
them,
conversations
and then
are very uncomfortable.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, well, it is. I mean, it's uncomfortable because it's a part of reality. And I'm not an IQ essentialist. Like, I've never assumed that I have a particular IQ. I know that I am intelligent. I do not know what my IQ would be. I've never, I assume if I took an IQ test, it would be slightly above average, but not crazy. And yet I know that I have a certain amount of raw intelligence that allows me to understand things that many other people can't understand. I don't know how that translates to IQ. I've never taken an IQ test, so I have no idea. But so I don't put much weight into IQ specifically. I think there's a strong correlation between high IQ and raw intelligence, but I don't necessarily put those as an equality.
But it means something, right?
Thing. It
And
does.
It's like
correlates with something, but whatever that something is different.
That. Like, especially in this context, like we're purely talking about like capability when it comes to thought, innovation, understanding, like what you can know, like that sort of stuff, right? Like essentially like mental horsepower. That's what it is, essentially, right? So like you can have a 150 IQ guy that drives a truck for a living, right? And he's not actually using his, vast intelligence. But at the same point, somebody who's 85 IQ can also drive a truck, but he doesn't have the same capabilities as that guy with 150 IQ.
Right, but it's a correlation versus causation thing, where IQ is it clearly correlates with raw intelligence, whatever that is, right, and how you want to break up intelligence.
Right, it's just the best metric.
Like IQ
so I don't have
and
another
EQ
metric.
or whatever. Right, exactly. It is a metric, but it is a metric that correlates to this thing we call intelligence that we can't ever really perfectly grasp, and so. I think the fallacy is to equate the metric with the thing itself, and that can create issues. The correlation is clearly there. To deny the correlation creates issues as well. But there is a distinction, and IQ almost certainly cannot fully capture what is involved in terms of having raw intelligence, but it absolutely correlates strongly to this thing, intelligence, that is in some sense impenetrable. We can't perfectly know how to measure intelligence, but we can measure this third thing that allows us to, that has a strong correlation with this other thing called intelligence.
To 85, sometimes up to 2 standard deviations lower. Whew. 85 to 100 would be skilled labor administrative support, 100 to 115 professional middle management, 115 to 130 engineer, scientist, doctor, specialized roles, the things they desperately need that they get from us. 130 plus innovation, leadership, high level problem solving. Next slide, please. Inbreeding itself over generations causes massively compounds that lead to negative consequences. And you can see the risk curve there. You see how the genetic defects increase every single generation. Moving over, I just want to point this out on the last slide. Islam took an ethnic people that were at the heart of being the top of civilization. And through generations of Islam and inbreeding has turned them into the lowest IQ, some of the stupidest people on planet Earth. Literally. You think I'm being mean. I'm not. They're literally some of the stupidest people on planet Earth. Everywhere Islam goes, inbreeding increases and societies become worse. Where Christianity goes, inbreeding decreases, so societies do better in almost every material way. Let's just point out here, as I wrap this up. 1 second. So it's clear here that my argument summarized, though this isn't its entirety, is that Islam creates huge societies with large swaths of people with IQs so collectively low, they would be considered developmentally challenged, borderline retarded here in the West. Not kidding. Due to this side effect, force doctrine becomes the order of the day. Because the technological difference in capabilities of each people group is so vastly different, think Apollo mission compared to Starship Enterprise, Islam must literally bank on the benevolence of Christians to not wipe them off the face of planet Earth. They are basically, the feminists of the East, totally reliant on the goodwill and benevolence of global Christianity, not to just not exterminate them. Okay? And take their resources, always appealing to the mightier force for their existence and the benevolence of that very people group who Daniel today is arguing doesn't make better societies, which is a laughable proposition. Even absent the degeneracy of a people group must be able to competently defend itself or bank on the benevolence of the people group, which can. And almost everybody's going to prefer the society that can. Imagine the irony here of arguing against the very Christians you find inadequate morally, yet bank on their moral benevolence to not wipe your low IQ fucking asses off the face of planet Earth.
It's not a bad argument.
It's going to come up a little bit later, but that was their opening statements. That it's like, you claim to have a problem with the Jews, and there's 10 million of them next to a billion of you, and you can't do anything against them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, you got 10 million of them in your backyard. You can't do anything. You tried. What is the best Muslim country? The most powerful Muslim country? Iran, UAE, maybe in terms of economics.
Yeah, best and most powerful are probably maybe separate.
Well, militarily, like obviously we're familiar with Iran's capabilities, and they're very limited in scope, right? I mean, they're
limited, but they're decentralized and somewhat well-organized.
I mean, honestly, like Israel's a really small country, and they sent basically everything they had, and while it was certainly able to do a little bit of damage, I felt like Iran got way more shafted in that exchange. And then, of course, using America's B-2s to blow up your nuclear facilities is not particularly cool either.
Well, Israel knows how to play the political game.
Yeah, 100%. And well,
that,
even just
that high IQ comes in handy.
In a straight up fight, what does Iran or the UAE do against America? Nothing.
No.
Nothing. Not a thing. When
In
we
a
can
straight
just
up fight,
well,
Israel
it would have to
wouldn't
be
do anything either. It's like,
well, no, but what I'm saying is, so he's saying Christians make bad societies, and Andrew's like, well, Christian societies would wipe you off the face of the planet before breakfast. Without, like, what are you going to do against F-35s and B-2s? Nothing. Nothing. Like, we can execute you at will, right? You don't even have nuclear capabilities. Like, your existence relies on our benevolence.
which let's not forget how incredible having a small cadre of extremely intelligent people that can pass on their knowledge to the next generation, how incredible that asset is for a country. Like, the fact that we have nuclear capabilities is still remarkable, right? It's like the fact that we have developed to the level that we have developed is not something to just be like scoffed at. It is remarkable how technologically advanced the U.S. is, and compared to so much of the rest of the earth, we are still living in like a sci-fi movie compared to what so many people are dealing with. And so it's like I think it's
it's
funny
like,
to be like, oh, they don't even have nuclear capabilities. Nuclear capabilities, like not only the theoretical side of it is very complicated to understand, but then the engineering side of it is even harder to actually apply. It is incredible the capabilities that we have, and that's what happens when you have.
Well, yeah. So it's like take your Iranian donkey farmer, and then put that up next to like the ISS. It's like these two things are not the same.
Yeah.
But to the point that we've become so technologically advanced and whatnot, made our society so easy and so cush for our. Eventually, we're going to start devolving as far as a Western society, and like I mean, we're seeing it in real time. So I mean, I think they do have that edge on us in the long game, but I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Who is Jake?
I think he's talking about Zorp.
Yeah,
Zorp. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, Jake has a gravelly voice. I mean, there are a lot of Jays, sorry, in these streams, so they can get confusing at times.
Speaking of voices, John, I joined one of the voice chats in your Discord, and
oh boy,
you were holding out at me. I mean, it's a good time, but you were holding out. I didn't know you had a mega gay zone.
Okay, so
here I am.
that's one
I've
of
been
the
looking this whole time for a
I
mega
know,
gay
I
zone,
know.
and
I made it just for you. I think now it's the friend zone, so it went from the mega gay zone to just the friend zone. So yeah,
just call it the James zone from now on.
The James zone.
Yeah.
Funny story. So back in high school at our youth camp through our church, there was a kid named Joel, and he was just always the type of guy who never wanted to do anything. So they made a specific time in our youth camps that were called J time, where it was essentially just nothing was on the schedule, so they called it J time. So yeah, too many J's.
Too many J's.
Zion, Zorp, ZZ Bottom. Damn.
Is Jake a Zionist? Is that why they're saying?
No.
He. It's funny because he usually he's anti-Spurg, and so when people start spurging out about Israel or Zionism stuff like that, he's usually trying to be the voice of reason. And so because of him trying to be reasonable, it's like shell.
I feel like I get some of that flack too.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of the same thing, same vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for that opening as well. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to our friends, Main First, and also we're going to kick it into 5-minute rebuttals. First with Daniel, the floor is all yours.
So this falls exactly into what I predicted. You argued like a libtard. This falls into exactly what I predicted. You argued like a libtard. How you're saying that success is on the basis of IQ. Well, how are you going to argue tomorrow when you debate with an atheist that Christian IQ is higher than secular atheist IQ? In fact, the atheist IQ is much higher than Christian IQ. So your entire standard for judging Islam applies just as much to Christianity. And tomorrow when you're debating the atheist, you'll have to concede that your Christian religion is associated or correlated with.
No, he can debate the atheist on the merits because he's debating with a high IQ person.
Well, I think he's going to say, well, Christians have a lower IQ than atheists, but that only counts if you count South American and African Christian countries.
Right,
Look, the average country IQ in Nigeria is 86. You're so stupid. It's like, well, yeah, but if you say American Christians versus American atheists, the IQs are within a point of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically the same. So that argument doesn't hold water, sir.
Good on this Daniel guy. If he had talking points around the IQ
He's trying,
issue,
man.
if he knew that was coming, good on him. I don't know if he was frantically looking stuff up, or I don't know.
And odds are the atheist probably has some Christian roots in his lineage as well, if he's from America.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could say, oh, you're from America? Congratulations. You're from a Christian nation.
Right.
Yeah.
There are no atheists
Exactly.
that don't have Christianity in their background, right?
Yep.
Atheism is not something that is allowed in other societies. I take it back.
Even in pagan societies, right?
There are
before
certain
Christianity,
communist societies that have embraced it, but it's like in terms of the Western atheism is a thing that is allowed because of Christianity.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but then it's like, okay, would you rather live in America today or Mao's China? Well, I would be killed in Mao's China, so I will take America today.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
With
I'm not
lower
sure-
IQ.
What's
I don't know. I wonder what the. I'd be curious to know what the IQ levels are in China.
Like obviously
low
we talk about like
100s, they're good. East Asians are good, like somewhere between 103 and I think Japan
well, but
has the
who are
highest
being
East Asian
tested,
IQ.
right? Are they testing random so and so out in the rice farms? Like that.
No,
I'd
that's
be
a
very
good point because
skeptical.
there's island Asians and then there's jungle Asians. Okay, and jungle Asians are not as smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's more of a country distinction usually. I'm talking about like even if you were just to take China and go out into the rural
Well,
sections of
so
China.
China's funny because the Han is who you think of when you think of a Chinaman, right? So they're larger, they're lighter skinned, but there's a
John,
large
we're not supposed
ethnic.
to say Chinaman.
You can't say Chinaman. Oh, I was like, is that a slur?
James-
I didn't even.
It is
I
a
didn't
slur.
know I was
It's
being
supposed to be a slur.
Wait,
I
is
don't
it
care.
saying a
Literally
man-
China man. Yeah.
James is
Well,
just
so
being
when-
gay. Don't listen.
when
to
I'm
him.
just being gay. I'm
Okay,
just-
so when you think of a Chinese man, when you think of a Chinese man, okay,
That's
not
okay,
a China
yeah,
man.
okay.
When you think of a Chinese man, you think of a Han, right? And Han is the largest ethnic group, I think 60%. But there is a minority within China that the Han hate, and there's the interior people that are the retards, and then the coastal people that are the Han, right? And so they're quite literally the Han are lighter skinned and more like traditional looking, right? And then the interior people are more like darker skinned, like think Vietnamese or something like that, right? Just interesting.
Well, I will say
I
Asians
can't
are
tell
some
the
of most
difference, but they
racist
hate
people.
they hate each other. Yeah. They're so racist they can tell the difference between themselves, right? That's the real that's real
you guys
real
have seen
hatred
that,
right there.
You guys know the King of the Hill line where it's like, so are you Chinese or Japanese? Like, I am from Laos. It is a landlocked country. Okay, so are you Chinese or Japanese?
I don't know what that means. Yeah, and they actually, it's funny to speak about atheists
Uyghur,
punishing Muslims.
yeah.
Sorry, that's
Uyghur, yeah.
Uyghur, not
Mhm.
Wigger. Uyghur. Right. It's different.
So,
Therefore,
well,
atheism.
And then think about like so Asia lies about everything. I mean, or China lies about everything. But if you
Also
think
fair
about
point.
like another Asian country like India, same question applies. Like the people that we get from India are generally pretty high IQ. They have,
From India?
yeah, they have different morals. But yeah, the people we get from India are usually pretty intelligent, pretty high IQ.
That
They are
was that was the point I was going to bring up earlier. Is that we take in all these immigrants that are relatively smart, and so we're taking away the higher IQ of their populace and making their country worse. Therefore, it only exaggerates the problem to make them want to come here more and not make their own country better.
Fair point. Practically, you might be right. I don't know how significant that it has an impact on India, but I mean, because there are plenty of people that stay in India, and I mean, even the people that come here are very often still have lots of family back there and are pretty associated with that. I work with a lot of Indians in my tech consulting role. They have different values. Some of them are pretty fully assimilated here, but a lot of them still have pretty different values. And I've experienced even just issues of lying is pretty socially acceptable in India. Definitely different ethical standards, and it comes to bite us sometimes. But generally, pretty intelligent people. But the people that, as I understand it, talking to some of my Indian coworkers, the people that come here from India are like the the upper castes. They're the Patels and the families that are pretty well off in India. And so again, it's like a country that we think of that has a lot of like technological advancement and does a lot of tech work. If you were to pull the entire society, because over 50% of Indians still poop in the streets, I think, real stat. So it's like it's a shockingly high number. I don't know the exact number, but
There's only 1.1 billion of them, so
Yeah.
a lot of people.
They're really good at
it's
scamming.
a lot
as
of shit,
well,
no matter
so,
what.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the thing that even if that's the thing why IQ definitely isn't the end all be all, because I don't care if I import every 100 IQ person into this country. The fact that they simply don't share my values, or they believe that scamming people is fine, or whatever they can do to lie, cheat, and steal to get ahead, and that's like actually viewed as a good thing within their society. It's just treated
Right.
as normal. Like I don't want you here, right? It's not just IQ, okay?
No, I mean, to me, that matters actually a lot more. I mean, IQ matters too. Like, if we're going to be bringing people in, I don't care too much about people that are here. I'll love anyone. But in terms of if we're making a decision about bringing someone in, I would prefer to get the smarter people than the dumber people. But values matter even more than that. And yeah, we shouldn't be bringing in spies, which is a concern from China. And then from India, yeah, they have significantly different values. And so it is worthwhile being slow and cautious about who we bring in. I'm not against bringing in people. I like the concept of immigration. I do think that it's good for us to be an attractive country that pools, the best and brightest from all across the world. I think of it like an organization. If I was running a company, I would want to be a company that is seen as a good company to work for and pulls the best and brightest from, all the other companies that we can. We are an attractive site, and I think that the U.S. has that advantage, and I think that we should exploit that. But values matter. It's not just raw intelligence. It's not just work performance. And it should be. We need to be very careful, and it is a very hard thing to assess, especially when you try to do it at numbers that we simply can't make the proper assessments at the numbers that we're currently doing. So it needs to be significantly reduced, and that just shouldn't be a controversial statement, at least not as stated as such. You can disagree with it, but nothing that I'm saying is racist or offensive in any way. Not that you guys would be concerned about that.
My take is significantly worse than that. Worry not. I'm not offended.
Or secularism is better for society because it raises IQ. So that's one point. Point number 2, where in the Bible does it restrict cousin marriage? This, as you acknowledge, is a later papal decree. It was not a part of Jesus' teachings. Jesus didn't come out and say, hey, if you want to have a successful society.
Did you watch this before or no?
I've seen the first hour and 15 minutes. It got into a back and forth at that point, and it was it never really changed topics because Daniel was never able to move away from this point. So it kind of keeps going back and forth. But saying Jesus didn't explicitly not allow it. So this is the other thing I thought was kind of interesting. Saying Jesus didn't explicitly not allow it, therefore it's fine and actually a good thing. When we can infer that, we don't have to have explicit warnings not to credit card scam somebody because it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible saying you can't do a credit card scheme. It's right, but we can infer and we can kind of come to conclusions based off of our principles that this is a bad thing and we should not do it.
Maybe Christ just assumed hey, these guys will probably figure out they shouldn't be, doing the dirty with their cousin. So, but guess not.
Well, and right, it's did Christ leave a church here on earth that then outlawed it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Christianity, in terms of their sexual ethics, tended to be more relationship focused than genetic focused, right? Genetics is a later concept, but Christians were against sort of these violations of relationship norms, right? You don't sleep with your mother-in-law, not because she's genetically related, because there's some genetic risk, but because that is a violation of the way that relationship is supposed to work, right? The same would apply in Christian ethics with a stepsister or it's anything like that. It's still clearly against Christian ethics because it's the relationship that is violated. The genetics are, yes, a helpful sort of aside, and there are good genetic reasons not to inbreed. But even if you're not violating those genetic norms, there are still all kinds of Christian reasons not to engage in certain acts because they are a violation of the relationship norms that Christianity establishes.
I think that there's just some synergistic positive effects of Christianity, right? So it's God blesses his people who do his will in these ways, right? That happen to increase IQ over time, right? By having these standards, right? By being clean, by not cheating people, you end up creating these sorts of societies and having these synergistic byproduct benefits, right? These blessings as a people, right? For being more Christian, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus, Muslim countries being in a way, punished for their wrong beliefs, right, and their rejection of Christianity, right?
I like
It's like,
Logan's
okay,
comment.
you want to follow these beliefs, you want to follow these false teachings. Well, then, 1,500 years later, you're all going to be, mouth-watering retards.
I like Logan, where it's like, yeah, I mean, Jesus didn't say specifically, don't, hook yourself
Run
up to
people over in my car. I mean, there's a lot of
explosive
gray
vests
area,
and-
okay?
yeah.
Okay, nukes were never mentioned in the Bible, so some of you countries better watch out.
I think Jesus did explicitly say to yoke yourself to one woman, though. So, believe he did say that.
Yeah, no, there are rules for marriages, but
Mhm.
not explicitly like, oh, by the way, it must be at least 3 degrees of separation between you and, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Like, there weren't like explicit commands in that way.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying in general, like polygamy, as far as the Muslims.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've kind of lost the argument when you're trying to make the argument for the edge cases as the norm, right? It's like
They have
yes.
to, though, because
well,
the
exactly
prophet did
because it's the norm, right? Because the prophet did it. Because it's, whereas in like Christianity, yes, you will find Christians in the past who have married younger than we would be comfortable with women or maybe girls, I don't know, but even still, those are edge
Pulling an Eric
cases.
Swalwell, a 17-year-old woman.
For most of history, that would have been considered a woman. Just saying.
yeah.
But yeah,
my
it's
first
like,
boss married his wife when she was 15.
Yeah,
Now he was
well,
like 80 years old at the time, so this happened to be in
No,
like
that's-
1941.
all right.
Yeah.
Cool story,
edge
bro.
Cases, like I said. But trying to normify the edge cases is a different thing. Yeah, it just is. And that's what Muslims have to do because the founder of the feast did these things. He did all the things. He did. He married the cousin.
Married the
underage.
cousin who
It's like,
happened to be 6 years old and then consummated.
I don't
marriage,
think
like-
Aisha was a cousin, but I think he also did marry a cousin.
Yeah, there was another
Probably.
one in there. I mean, it's one thing for the Muslims to defend it, but it's another thing for Mormons to say, actually, we explicitly just 180'd on that. We're just no, nope. At least they try and defend it. They have to, right? But Mormons just give up. They're like, no, don't do it. It's bad. Also, black people are human now.
Audience, I do want to ask you to keep it down so we can hear the speaker.
Jesus didn't say, oh, hey, if you want success and you want to have a prosperous society, you shouldn't marry your cousin. Jesus never had this apparently essential Christian teaching that is the key to success on earth. That's your whole argument against Islam, and it's found nowhere in Jesus' teachings. It's found nowhere in the early church fathers' teachings. This is something that came later. And also, when it was decreed that cousin marriage is considered to be incest, it wasn't on the basis of IQ. This is something that you have adopted from who? From atheists, from secularists, from those who are doing secular science to discover these medical problems or IQ levels. So your entire standard for judging Islam is not a Christian standard, it's not a biblical standard, it's not an Orthodox church standard. This is coming only from atheists,
Where
from
do you think
atheistic
science
science.
comes from?
Second,
Yeah, it's like I'd like you to try and separate these values and tell me where the modern university system or hospital system or any of these things came from, and then tell me how these came out of a secular atheistic society.
Right.
Because we're like, oh, listen, the Enlightenment in the 1700s, and I'm like, oh, when Christianity was at like 99% or something like that, like you have a better argument now, but trying to go back and say like, oh, look what came out of these horrible societies. It's like, well,
second of all, if IQ is such end-all be-all, Christian societies, if you bring up a country list of countries by IQ, many Christian countries are on the bottom there. I don't know if you consider them to be true Christians because they're not white, but they're also at 80 IQ, 70 IQ. Look at sub-Saharan Africa, look at Latin America, look at the Philippines. It's also comparable with Muslim countries. Do you consider them to be Christians or not? Also, go back to the Middle Ages. IQ was much lower in the Middle Ages in Christian societies. Why that has changed is because of the Flynn effect. IQ has increased globally over the world, across the world, because of the Flynn effect. So if you have a problem, again, with lower IQ, look at medieval or middle-age Christian societies. And also, here's another big problem. IQ is also
What is the Flynn
linked with
effect?
race.
I'm not familiar with that term.
the Flynn effect describes the phenomenon, where average IQ scores have risen over time, typically by about 3 points per decade. The effect was first documented by James Flynn in the 1980s, who analyzed IQ data from various countries and found consistent increases in test scores across generations. The term Flynn effect was coined by Richard Herrstein and Charles Murray in their 1994 book, The Bell Curve. I'm not really sure how that's
Yeah, I
possible.
don't know
Like
how that relates.
That doesn't seem well. That doesn't even seem to be feasible. Like if he's like, oh well, IQ's increased by 3 points per decade.
But why does that not apply to Muslim countries? That's the question.
Well, I don't know how that's true. So that means if you go back 10 years or 100 years, like the early 1900s, right? Their IQ was 40, right? And if
No,
you go
yeah,
forward
I don't think that it works like that.
it can't
no,
be.
you're right,
It would have to do with something else. There's some other factor there that's messing with the IQ scores, not just time. Like, because people can't linearly get smarter than that. Because if in 100 years we're getting IQs in the 170s and 180s as like one standard deviation above norm, like that doesn't sound right.
I have heard The Bell Curve is a good book. I've never read it, but yeah, it probably is worth reading.
I just know I'm on the left side of the bell curve. That's all.
Now, I think Douglas Murray is one of those people that gets probably, well, certainly unfairly castigated as putting an overemphasis on genetics, IQ, and things like that. And it's like, well, someone's got to talk about these things because they are actually important to society. It can be unhelpful when you fixate on them. I mean, I believe that. Like, it really can be unhelpful and uncharitable and unchristian, and some people have absolutely an overemphasis on them. But we can't just deny facts and just ignore them and hope that everything turns out well. It's like sometimes it's important to talk about these things. And again, not with an equation between intelligence and IQ, but just to recognize that, like, hey, we're measuring something, and this metric has a strong correlation. And what are we going to do about it? This is actually something that causes problems in society. So we should address it, not just ignore it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it exists. It's real. It's measurable. We can see its effects. You know, even if we don't have a perfect reason for why it does all these things, we see that it exists. And yes, it's absolutely used as a hammer against people. But as an individual, it shouldn't matter whether you're talking to somebody who's at 85 IQ or 115 IQ, well, right? It's like, oh, I have a measured IQ of 107, therefore I'm a better person than Christian, who only has a 105 IQ. It's like, that's pathetic, right? But as
Christian
a society,
has a much higher than 105.
well, but I'm just saying, I mean, as a society, we have to recognize this stuff is real, and if we import people with an average IQ of 68, there's long-term detrimental effects to that, right? And because we don't want to just hurt our own people, we're not going to do something stupid like that. And then you get the flip side of that, where it's like, oh, well, you talk about IQ and race, or you're an IQ realist or a race realist. Well, then you get banned from the university system. You get your 10-year pulled, or whatever it might be in some of these places, right? You get your awards posthumously removed from you because, oh, he was a racist, actually, because he pointed these things out, right?
Right. Yeah. If you are dealing in facts, then it should all be fair game. That's my stance.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want to prioritize high IQ, you should discourage interbreeding between races. Why should higher average IQ from Asians or whites or Jews or whatever race that has a higher average IQ? Christianity encourages or allows interbreeding between the races. That will result in a lower IQ. So you should be against that because that's going to, over time, lower the average IQ of society. So that
I'm pretty sure he's wrong there. But
well, I have a pragmatic, most people should not interbreed.
I'm pretty sure that's a stance the Catholic Church held for a good while until modernity hit.
Well, but
I would have
just,
to look that up.
Like, you can look up the effects of interbreeding and some of the genetic issues that can arise. You can look at predispositions to like mental illness and stuff like that. But I'm not saying it's like a moral wrong all the time, but as a pragmatic reason, I think that most people should probably avoid it. There can be allowances for certain circumstances, of course, but I think as a general rule, most people should avoid it. Right?
We got a super chat.
We've got a couple, actually.
We got a couple.
We're like
Yeah.
2
We should
hours
go
ago
back.
that we did not talk about.
Yeah, we need to be better. Amorite Boy, thanks for coming on earlier. He says, I have an ungoverned authority that facts don't matter. You are probably correct.
according to the government. Let's go back and review some of our old super chats. Early on in the stream, we had Central Sands Defense. Thank you very much, sir. A regular supporter of the channel. Higher Standard. All right, Peak Lord Karen.
Yeah, that was back when we were talking about the first topic.
to the,
that was a while
many
ago.
Karens, yes.
Thank you, man.
Thank you very much, sir. And then Emerai Boy as well said, I really enjoyed joining the stream tonight and getting to talk about the topics we covered. Well, we appreciate having you as well. And we
Thanks for coming on, man.
enjoy talking to you guys. Anyone who is a regular commenter and viewer and wants to come on, I think you know where to find us. So.
Absolutely.
Now, we are about 3 hours into the stream. Do we just want to finish up with his first rebuttal and then call it a night? Because 3 hours is pushing it, guys.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Okay. I think he only has a minute or two left in his 5-minute rebuttal.
That should be something that you need to oppose to be consistent. Interracial marriage or interracial breeding should be contrary to your point or contrary to your position. Also, yeah, I mean, I'm just shocked that your entire argument about why Christianity is better than Islam is a cousin marriage argument. That's like shocking because it just works so far against you. So if IQ is the end all be all of what makes a society good, then Christianity loses to atheism and secularism. Like, case closed. So like, and many Christian societies are low IQ, as in the same way as certain Muslim countries. The thing about the difference between me and you is my values are based on marriage, family, traditional values of that nature, not atheistic values of IQ and intelligence.
We're going to jump into Andrew's rebuttal as well. The timer is set for you.
All right,
5 minutes,
pause it.
Andrew.
I mean, here would be my rebuttal. Like, no. This is one point that is in line with your values, is a function of your values that leads to a worse society. This debate is about what leads to a better society. There are plenty of other arguments I would make in terms of to atheists for why Christianity leads to a better society. One of the big factors would be the fact that the modern atheist societies are the good ones, you know, excluding sort of the communist hellholes, are good because of their Christian values, not because of their atheism. But when talking to a Muslim, I'm just pointing out this one not insignificant fact that is a product of your values that leads to worse societies.
Yeah.
Case closed.
And
I mean, I assume Andrew makes a similar point, but it's a pretty simple argument.
He keeps bringing up how some of the lowest IQ countries are Christian as well. But, I mean, Christianity is so popular and spread so rapidly, it's not going to fix a country that probably was Muslim for the majority of its span. Like, it becoming Christian within the last 100 years isn't going to suddenly fix the IQ problem. So, just saying.
Yeah, it's a very long, difficult process.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Right, that's a good point, right? It's like Western culture only reached some of these countries, you know, a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Totally fair point.
It's not just going to fix their society within, a couple generations. It's not how it works.
You know, 1,000 years of Christianity at work in your culture might lead to a higher IQ. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
We also did just get a donation from Ko-Fi, New Procrastinator.
What'd he say?
Let me pull it up here. All jokes aside, great stream as always. I hope you guys have a great night and the rest of your week. Well, thank you very much, New Procrastinator. It's very kind of you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
Awesome.
And speaking of which, in terms of the stream, we got a question earlier. I noticed. Are we switching to a regular Tuesday stream? And I think for the foreseeable future, that's kind of the case. I know with Thanksgiving next week, we might change it up next week. But going forward, I think we're planning on Tuesdays. Probably moving away from the Sundays. It was getting a little bit hard. Just trying to work with family plans and trying to also make sure that Sunday was a restful Sabbath day. So going forward, plan on Tuesday nights. We might switch it up here and there. We might still have Sunday streams as well when we are feeling it. But I think Tuesday will be the new regular stream. So thanks, guys.
That's right. All right. Well, I actually do want to see what Andrew opens his rebuttal with here.
Sure.
Libtard value. Don't fuck your first cousin.
There you go, John.
Libtard. Let me just point out that Daniel Kikikachu didn't actually rebut any of my arguments. Not a single one. My argument was simple, and I'll repeat it here again. The argument is that your society has to rely on the benevolence of mind to exist because of your general IQ. You see, remember how I told you the 70 to 85 is basic jobs, practical skills, routine labor? That's most Muslim societies, sir. Doesn't matter if you point out 2 exceptions to the rule. Even in those societies in which Christians have a lower IQ, guess what you find? Their interbreeding rates are going down, and when you compare them to the same Arab population where they're inbreeding, that section of the population, the IQ is always lower. So what's my argument here? My argument is that Christian societies are better because they lower inbreeding, which collectively takes your IQ so far down the rabbit trail that you end up having to beg the higher IQ individuals for protection from them. You have to bank on their benevolence. Imagine this guy is banking on the benevolence of Christians who have a high enough IQ to basically eradicate all of the Middle East. There's nothing they can do about it. And they're banking on that benevolence while telling you all that you're immoral. You're immoral. This is not an atheist argument.
Just again, to break down the argument, he is curtailing the argument, saying that all I need to show is that Christianity leads to a better society than Muslim society. I am not currently arguing with the atheists, so that point doesn't matter, actually. I am simply making a point about this versus that, and this leads to significantly, less inbreeding, which is a significant factor. And yeah, it works. Daniel did not address that argument at all, and I'm curious to see if he actually ever does. But all Daniel said in rebut was, well, you can't make IQ the standard, because then you're going to have an issue with atheists, which, again, that has an answer in and of itself. But that still, even if atheist countries, if there was such a thing as an atheist country and they had a higher IQ, that would not do anything to show that his perspective on this question of whether or not Christian or Muslim societies lead to a better society, or values lead to a better society, he would not be showing his point at all. And that was basically the essence of his rebuttal was, oh, well, you can't make that argument because that'll hurt you when trying to argue with atheists. Sorry, you still lose. Even if that's true, you still lose.
Well, and I think that's it's multifaceted, right? So for when you're arguing against a Muslim, you can use this, and it's like, here's the weapon I'm going to use for this specific fight. But for atheists, like, for instance, you could argue, okay, well, communist China is more atheistic, like 90% atheistic, and they have higher IQs on average than the U.S. does. So what about that? Well, it's like, well, yeah, but I have a different set of arguments for them, right? Of course. Right. It's like you don't have to use the same argument for everything. And he's not saying this is the only argument I have, but this is like, this one thing leads to so many detrimental things within your own worldview, within your own communities, within your societies, and we're arguing what's better for society, that I'm going to use this one specific thing against you in this debate. Right.
And Daniel's retort is, oh, I can't believe that's your only argument. To which Andrew could say, well, it's not my only argument. It's just it's a good enough argument to defeat you.
It's really good, though, and it's all I need, actually.
It's
which is
all I
sad.
need to defeat you, which is really sad for your position. Yeah, it's a pretty devastating attack.
It's a pretty bad optic for an entire society and culture. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would not want to be Daniel right now.
No, maybe he just likes it, dude. Maybe he just likes screwing his cousin, man. Who knows?
Hey, Jesus said I could do it. Or
yeah,
exactly. I didn't say I couldn't do it. All right.
Yeah, that's right. Important distinction there.
Yeah. Rat King says retarded people are so happy and content. All they need is a pody and EBT. That's right. Hook, bad boy. No.
Oh. Did he just drop out?
Get himself out. All right, John, come back.
I pressed the wrong button. I have a hotkey on my my mouse that goes back, and I just AD'd my mouse. My bad. Well, we're at the 3-hour mark, gentlemen. Yep. I think it's time to wrap it up and get on out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tuesday nights. I kind of like it.
I do too.
That's a good vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, Tuesday night?
Yes.
Next week might be tough. We might have to maybe switch it up a little bit.
We could switch to Thursday, but no, just kidding.
Yeah, right. That is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk offline. I may be able to make Tuesday work. There are some family commitments that I have to work around, but
we could possibly go before or after a focus trip stream as well.
Okay.
Try that again. I mean, that's miserable for me because it's like 6 hours in a row, but not including the work beforehand. But yeah,
right.
I can get it done. I can do it for 1 week. It's fine.
We can maybe, if that would work for 1 week, that might work out well. So maybe the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, if you're doing a stream then.
Dude, I just noticed how conspicuous my Smith & Wesson poster is hung up.
Just aiming right at you.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
That's
Well,
actually
good
the
stuff.
Jesuit
I've managed to
magisterium
get through
right
the
there.
stream with mostly lucid comments, I think. So the alcohol isn't killing me. So, hey, that's something. That's an accomplishment right there.
Yeah.
Appreciate you all being here tonight.
And that's why Christian countries are better than Muslim, because
and
James
that's
can get drunk on
because
a
I
Tuesday
can
night.
drink.
Amen.
God bless, gentlemen. We appreciate you all.
Oh, right before you end, something important. Richard says, could I please ask you guys to pray for my grandmother? She was transferred back into the ICU today. Complications from her surgery. Absolutely, will do, Richard. I hope you're doing well, man. That is not fun, and we will pray for you and your grandmother.
Absolutely.
Back to the ICU. Sorry, man.
Praying for you.
All right.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
God bless.